Power on.
The following is a presentation of the Sovryn Tech podcast feed.
And now for another fast-breaking news story, we go to our roving reporter,
The podcast, Sovryn Tech. Its host, Dr. Brian Sovryn. The tech giants tried to stop Sovryn Tech. They can't.
The man of tomorrow is here, the Golden Stallion, Savzu, the rated R radio star, ready to bring on a little Sovryn Technica supplemental. Wait a minute, did I say Sovryn Technica? What was that? I should not have said that. Whoa. But you just heard the voice of Ellen Sovryn. Mrs. Sovryn is joining us for this fun little episode. We've got a bunch of stuff we're going to get into. Woo, absolutely. Let me make some room for you on the desk here. You got, are you kidding me? That computer's so tiny. You don't need any room on the desk.
I have recently inherited Brian's CPD, GPD,
right.
micro PC.
Yeah, now, it's funny, actually. I think in the Telegram group for Sovryn Tech, somebody asked, you talked about a PC months ago, this little PC. What is it? And that's it, the GPD micro PC.
What's the size of the screen on this? Is it 6 inches, 5 inches?
No, I think it's 6.
I got a ruler. I can measure it.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure it's 6.
Measured by the hypotenuse,
I
right?
was gonna say, yeah.
6 and it's the screen itself is 6, but the case around it is half an inch bigger than that.
Yeah. I was gonna say I have something I could measure with, but I don't.
But it's
bigger
big
than
case.
That.
It's really tough.
Yes.
This little computer, I got a case for it. I don't think it really needs it.
No, I never bought a case for it.
I mean, the only thing is, this isn't waterproof. The case is.
Right.
But, yeah, this thing, you could run over it with a truck and it would be fine.
I think so. When GPD advertises it, they take a hammer to it, like an actual hammer. I will put it out there, if people are interested in getting these, they come out with newer models, so pay attention to the processor. Pay attention to, there might be an entirely different model that might be of more interest, because they have ones that come with 9-inch screens, have a little bit of a bigger keyboard, but you actually wanted the nice little
I love
BlackBerry
that it's
keyboard.
So tiny. Yeah. So you say Brian thinks that it's easier to hold this like one of those old slider phones, where you actually type with your thumbs and you hold it with both hands.
Yeah, like a sidekick. Yep.
Yeah, which you can do, and I think it's very easy to do that. I also like sitting down at a table with it and typing, because my hands are really small, and on a big normal size keyboard,
right,
which is big to me.
Right.
I make a lot of mistakes, and on this thing, it's just so much more compact.
Precise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say, over any new models that GPD may have come out with, this is the only one that has a serial port, that has a COM port on the back.
So many ports.
Oh, there's tons of ports in this thing. I love that machine so much. I'm glad you're enjoying the hell out of it. You take it with you everywhere. And part of the reason, you got this was, we had to go through a bit of an equipment upgrade because, and we're going to talk about this later on in the episode, we've got an adventure we're going on. We are going to engage our, explorer sides of ourselves.
We're going to test our survival abilities.
Yes, yeah. We've got at least a year-long adventure coming up very soon, where we are going to be doing some van lifing, as it were. But we'll be talking about that a little more later. We did have an adventure, opening this baby up though. We did have an adventure this past weekend. Oh,
what an adventure that was.
It was a Sonic adventure, not the video game, though. That's a great fucking video game. And actually, we might have seen Sonic Adventure graphics from that appear on the screen where we were at. We went down to Massachusetts, which that's certainly endangering oneself.
Oh, God. I hate driving in Massachusetts.
It's such a shitty state.
Yeah,
like,
we almost
overall.
get into an accident almost every time. Not our fault, but because people are... Mass holes are a real thing.
Yeah, it's a term well deserved. I mean, it's fucking insane. You know, at the same time, it's a place with a ton of history. Some of it very good history.
Oh, some of it really terrible, too.
Some of it really terrible.
Salem. Need we say more?
No, right? Magical place, but damn, one with a bloody history. Terrible.
I guess you could say the whole U.S. has that kind of history, though.
Yeah. Well, that's true. But like, certainly, Salem has some special history.
Yes.
Shall we say? We were there recently too, hanging out with some friends. That was awesome.
It was a good time, except we went on Halloween, which was a bad time.
Well, it was a good time because that town is just, proverbially
so
on
many,
fire.
Yeah,
during
characters, everybody's dressed up.
Yeah.
Like, the witches are out in full spirits, but also, it's a place that people flock to. It's like Mecca for everybody that loves witchery, witches, spirituality.
Yeah, absolutely. For the occult and the esoteric, it is certainly a mecca for that, and which is great. Like, I'm glad places like that exist.
It's just hard to drive through.
Yeah, and we had to get to a bodybuilding show, and
it was pouring rain.
Oh, that was insane. Boy, the stories we could tell.
The drainage on streets down there is not good at all.
Your car, your little Mazda 3 almost got drenched, or almost got covered because the roads were so flooded.
The road was so flooded.
Right.
I looked at this giant puddle, which was almost a lake, and I was like, I don't know if we're going to make it, but I'm just going to hold down the gas until we get through, because if I let go, the engine's going to get flooded.
Just gun it.
Yeah. We drove through this giant puddle. A wave of water literally went over the entire car.
Yeah.
That's how deep it was.
Yeah. I wasn't worried, though, because...
We made it.
Yeah, I mean, earlier that night, I was hanging out with, four-time Mr. Olympia, Jay Cutler. There's some other big boys there, and I would have just, if the car stalled, it would say, Jay, come on over here, man.
Just push it
Push
through.
the car. Let's get out and
through
push the
that
car.
nasty Massachusetts street water.
Yeah. We'd all get, it looked fantastic.
There's heroin needles floating around in there.
But it would have made for a great photo shoot. I mean, Jay's back, and
Yep.
anyway, it would have been
You would
amazing.
all be shirtless, too.
Yeah. You just have all these huge dudes just pushing you, and you're just smiling back.
I'd be sitting on top of the car waving.
Oh my God! Oh, what a sight! God, I'm getting a little excited here. Anyway, all right. So other excitement. That was, God. When was that? Was it? That was Halloween, right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't a year ago, but it was a few months ago.
Yeah. But this time we went to Worcester.
Yeah, we went to Worcester, a place we've been to many times, which is the Palladium, one of the most historic music venues in the United States. I mean, that's not an exaggeration. Tons and tons and tons of history there. Many bands that came over from Europe, part of say the new wave of British heavy metal or whatever, or really any band coming from across the Atlantic. Usually what they'll do is they'll start their tour in Canada. Okay. And then their first date in the United States will almost always be the Palladium, for many bands. In fact, the first time the main band we were going to see, that they played in the United States, according to Herman Lee anyway, and that name gave it all away for those that know, was at the Palladium. So, that's some pretty amazing history, to have in there. But I mean, and we're talking about DragonForce, just a band really unlike any other. I've been a fan of that band for, just about as long as they've been around.
How long have they been around? 20 years?
Well, so that's the funny thing. I could have sworn Herman Lee said that they started in 2006, but I didn't think that their first album came out till 2008 or 2009, Valley of the Damned. Most people in America didn't know them until Inhuman Rampage hit, and that was a part of Guitar Hero where they did Through the Fire and the Flames. But yeah, they've been around, at least 15, and they've had a lot of albums in that time frame. And amazingly, they seemingly just keep getting better, even though I didn't think their last album, Extreme Power Metal, would that come out in 2020, 2019? I didn't think it was as good as some of their previous efforts, but it was solid. Anyway, so that was the main band we were going to see. And because, who doesn't, when you hear a DragonForce album, how can you not want to like experience like, okay, I got to see these people play live.
I gotta have my face melted in real time.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's what happens when you listen to the albums. It's insane. And really, I mean, like, there's great bands that have come since they started. Like Battle Beasts didn't get to play. They were supposed to play there too. We've already seen them at the Palladium, actually. But like, you think Beast in Black, they're Heat. There's a slew of bands that are phenomenal, that have come out. But I still think that DragonForce is like the apex of metal. Like, this is as far as you can go, and
with power metal, yes.
Yeah.
Because I think that's power metal's whole gig, is like, they're just trying to be as fast and intense as they possibly can.
Well, kind of. I mean, sometimes power metal's more like Rhapsody of Fire, where it's very melodic, but like, you gotta be talking about dragons and all that crap, which certainly DragonForce does. It's in the fucking name. But yeah, I mean, you're kind of right. Like, because I don't necessarily think it's speed metal. They are speed metal. Like, you could classify them there, but power metal doesn't always have to be that. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, so some of the bands that were opening for DragonForce, I don't know that I would have thought of them as power metal, but maybe they fit into that category. I'm not really sure. There's so many different kinds of metal. It's hard to distinguish and to delineate.
Yeah, and people like toss these terms around kind of willy-nilly as well.
Because there's like some progressive elements in some of these bands, but there's also some speed metal and power metal.
Yeah, like, I still don't understand really what metalcore is. I don't understand what djent or dent or however they want to pronounce that is. Like, these are different types of metal that I'm kind of, I don't get it, I mean, but I know I listen to bands that get classified under that, but I wouldn't call them that,
Yeah, sure.
Like, I think Amaranth gets called metalcore. Why? Like, that's just some hard rock, that's some great metal right there. But that's the same thing with me too, is like, I also don't know I know the difference, but I also don't agree that there's a difference between hard rock and metal, but whatever. So the bands, speaking of which, the bands that were playing, and this is a pretty loaded set.
It was amazing. I don't think we've ever seen so many artists in one night.
Yeah.
From a single venue.
Yeah, it was 4 bands. Show started at 7, went till about midnight, or 11:30 or so, something like that. But we had 7 Spires, which they have a couple albums deep. They're known, but they're from the area. They're like from Boston.
Yeah, they're kind of a local band.
Yeah. So 7 Spires, they get into a little bit of screamo. That's never really my bag, but I mean, I can get into it. But whatever, they were fine. Then Visions of Atlantis.
Yeah, that was a lot more melodic. There were duets going on with that.
Yeah.
There's a lot about pirates
was
sailing on the
amazing.
seas.
I loved it. Like, they were up on stage dressed as pirates and everything, and they were doing the full act, and the lead singer, they have 2 singers, but the lead singer I always think of as the gal. She's totally into it and like talking like, you're all welcome aboard our ship and everything. And I'm like, oh, fuck yeah, this is awesome. To have bands have the nuts to be that kind of corny and campy.
They were looking for a new crew.
Yeah, right. But but their songs were heavy. I mean, it was so cool. I love that when you're getting a real performance, and you're kind of like, bending reality on the stage. You don't get that enough.
It takes guts, to be that corny.
Yeah,
to really get into the act.
Right. I mean, the few bands like Manowar, of course, would do that, and there's some others that are willing to do that. But even some of the longtime acts will stop after a while, or they get said, "Oh, you went too far," like Styx or something, which I don't agree with. But whatever. Like, I thought it was awesome. I thought Visions of Atlantis was great. They definitely get classified as power metal. Firewind, which was the next band.
Yeah, they were awesome.
They were phenomenal. Yeah. I mean, of course, Gus G, one of the greatest guitarists of all time, certainly one of the kind of young gods as far as guitars go. He's an Ozzy's band as well, but Firewind is really where he started. They've been in this act for 20 years. Were they amazing. But them I consider more of a hard rock act. Like, they're not, I wouldn't call them really power metal. Like, I don't even know that they're, well, I don't know. Anyway, that's to your point. Like,
yeah, that's
who the fuck knows what this shit is? Go ahead.
That was the first time that I had ever heard Firewind. But I think, no, we listened to an album, the day before we went.
Yep.
But I think I agree with you that they were more of like melodic rock or power metal, or then power metal.
Yeah. But they were phenomenal, and like their cover of Maniac
That
from
was
Flashdance.
fun.
Oh, that was
my
so
gosh.
great. And the guy's just like jumping up and down and everything.
Yeah,
Oh.
we're doing the little dance, their arms up and down.
Yeah, that was intense. They've got great music. Even their latest album was, and I'm amazed how much they played off of that. Was great. Like opens right up heavy.
Yeah,
Very good. But then DragonForce came on.
Woo!
And we can talk more about this, but you know, we're open the show up, having fun, getting a review in here. DragonForce comes out. I mean, and their setup took a while. Like, it was amazing. These bands really, I mean, we've been there at the Palladium specifically, where it's taken 40 minutes to get the next band ready.
Yeah.
You know, and not just the main band, but all the bands. You know, where there's like these big pockets of time. That was not the case. I thought the bands were like rapid firing coming out, and they were only doing, you know, maybe 40-minute to hour sets each. But you know, DragonForce took a little bit longer to get set up because boy, do they have a stage show. I mean, it is, and I shared some video. If you're a Sovereign Tech patron, you got to go to patreon.com/sovereigntech. I shared some video and photos from the event, you know, and you can see like the DragonForce stage show. Holy fuck. I mean, it's crazy. But I started screaming the instant they brought out an arcade cabinet of Gradius.
Yeah, they had two.
Yeah. And they're big. Like, they're oversized, but they have screens in them that
They
actually
were
work.
so big that people were standing on top of them while they were performing.
Right. The guitarists could get on top. You know, it's so cool. Yeah, I mean, they're, you know, but they only went, I want to say they went an hour. Do you think they went any more than that?
No, I don't think so. You do have a set list from what they played.
That's true. I have the set list. Yeah, well, it's right over there. A guy like gave it to me. It was hilarious. But
he thought you were his buddy. He's like, "Oh well, so this isn't awkward. Take this."
Yeah, well, he might have, because remember when we were going into the Palladium, when we were first going in at 7, I said there was a guy who had a backwards black hat on, which is what I had on, and he was wearing the same exact Hammerfall hoodie that I was.
Yep.
You know, on the back that says, you know, "Rain in Hell," and which I'm all about. And,
serve in heaven or reign in hell.
Yeah, no, I'll reign in hell. Thank you. So I got you right here, John Milton. So I think that was probably his buddy, and he really thought, you know, it was me. But the thing is, the other guy was a very, you know, heavy-set fellow.
It's hard to tell when you're in a dark room.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, like, the guy was clearly not someone who would be, I mean, let's just say it, someone standing next to you and holding your hand. Do you get what I'm saying? You know, and I mean, and you're there wearing, I mean, like, can I say it? Can I?
Yeah, I guess
right.
you can say it.
I mean,
fine.
whatever. I make you do it anyway.
Oh, yeah, you're totally in control of my wardrobe choices.
Well, some days.
I asked you to help me pick out something to wear, and you picked out something I didn't like, so I changed my mind. I completely switched it around. But this dress,
not by much.
So I have worn the same dress to, actually, when we went to Kiss in Philadelphia.
Yes.
It was the same one.
Right.
But it was a very short dress.
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, this is what I was going to say.
Really
I mean,
tall leather boots.
Right. And, I mean, you know, your ass is like... I mean, there's nothing left of the imagination. Like there's... You're seeing skin, you know, and like... That and again, and your legs. Oh, anyway, sorry. Okay. To be fair, I want to make this clear. The skirt that I picked out for you was not as short as what you ended up wearing. Would you agree? Yeah.
Well, that's fine. I don't have a problem dressing like that.
No, I know, but I just don't want to seem like a jerk here. Like.
No, I actually love it. I mean, I work hard for this body.
Oh
right?
God, do you? Whew. Yes. All right. So aside from me being the luckiest man alive, yes. So anyway, I was just surprised that he would have confused me. I mean, I'm not surprised, but then I'm kind of surprised. Besides the point. So I don't think like let's get back on track because my mind's just going to all kinds of places.
You're getting too excited.
Yeah, exactly. So DragonForce probably played for about an hour. You know, they did a couple encores. That was great. We'll talk about that. But they played for about an hour. I was not surprised by that. I was kind of expecting it to be short because they are literally the candle that burns twice as bright. You know,
they play so fast,
yes,
and so intense that I don't think they could have sustained it for much longer.
No, that's the thing. Like, you're just gonna pass out and fall over. You'd have to have a meal in between. Like, you'd have to have an intermission or something. Because, and this drives me nuts, because for years, I have asked people who have went to go see, and I know I could have checked it out on YouTube at this time, but I've asked people who've gone to see them, and they always say, oh, no, they don't actually play that fast. Herman Lee doesn't actually play that fast. They are full of shit.
Oh, yeah,
people.
fucking right. He totally did.
He was blazing. I mean, like, yeah, I was expecting, like, shit to get set on fire. Like, I mean, he was just, man, like, he's playing so fast. People are fucking crazy who are saying that he doesn't. I mean, sure, I'm sure they use some software when they make their music, okay? But when they're live, they are killing it live. And there's plenty of guests and guitarists coming on, you know, to make sure that sound is hitting. But Herman Lee is blazing. I mean, the only guy I've seen comparable would be like Kristen Pelletieri, as far as somebody that, like, played that fast. It's so amazing.
It almost makes me wonder if people who say that they don't play well live just went to venues that had poor sound systems, because there's so much arpeggiation going on that if you don't have, like, really precise instruments to amplify that noise, then you're not going to catch all the notes.
Right. Yeah, I could believe that. I mean, again, the Palladium legendary stage. So, you know, the sound there is phenomenal. I mean, and we were, like, what, I don't know, 3-4 rows. I mean, like, not that there's, like, rows at the ground of the Palladium.
We were so close to the stage.
Super close, yeah. So
I mean, the lead singer had a gun. It was like, I think it was carbon monoxide.
Yeah, it's just blasting out smoke, high-pressure smoke.
Basically a smoke machine, but it looked like a gun.
Right.
We could feel that. He was spraying the crowd with it.
Yeah, and they were, like, blasting it out from the front of the stage, too. Like, just on, like, these, you know, whatever, not the gun, but, like, actually, like, points that they set up where the smoke could blast out. And it was I mean, the light show, everything about it, like, all the graphics that they're showing off, coming off these arcade machines and everything.
Oh yeah, and the insane. Drum set had a giant dragon with these light up eyes.
Yeah, the glowing red eyes.
Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, this is how a metal show should be, you know, like, it was really, really impressive. But I am not, and I have no complaints, because, you know, like, and tell me if you disagree. Like, there's so many times where I want to say that DragonForce is the greatest metal band of all time. Why? Because, again, they've hit that apex. Like, I think this is as extreme as you can get metal to go. But I can't say that because I can't listen to them all the time. Just because, I can't.
Who can take that amount of stimulation?
Right.
It's just going to drive you crazy.
Exactly. And they also don't have a ton of variety. Even though they tried to bring in some variety with their latest album. So I can never really call them that, but at the same time, if I'm not going to call them my favorite band, I think they're the apex of metal. I mean, how do you feel about that?
No, I agree. It's such an intense experience when you listen to an album that it does kind of tire you out.
Yeah.
But the whole time you're listening to it, you're supercharged.
Yeah, it's the greatest time. Yeah.
And I think what you're saying about it being the apex of metal, it's hard for me to imagine anyone going faster, more intense, or being better, because they are so great at songwriting and even just performing the music itself.
Yeah, incredible, you know, stage performance. But that's the thing. I don't think I'd want them to go for 2 hours, because, like, I'd just be burned out. You'd have to give me, like, when the show stops, you'd have to give me a fucking sleeping bag, and I'd just lay down in the Palladium because I'd just be, you know, done. Yeah,
or you just have to keep taking cocaine. I mean, one or the other.
That's not a bad option. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll talk about that. But anyway. So, I mean, give me your thoughts, like, on DragonForce's performance overall. I feel like I've been talking quite a bit here. But, you know, like, what did you think of that stage show? What were your, like, favorite moments, perhaps? Favorite songs that they did?
They did the opening song for Reaching into Infinity.
Yeah,
right?
That was great. Yep, that was good.
That actually is my favorite album from them, and I think that was probably my favorite song from the whole set. Which, you're welcome to read the set list off. Yeah,
it was Ashes of the Dawn. So, yeah, I'm actually reading from, this is like, I imagined I imagine that the band touched this.
Yeah, because it's actually got cues on there,
Right.
like when the streamers come out, when the confetti drops
Right.
in,
Yeah,
or the carbon dioxide
yeah,
gun.
the CO2, yeah, sparks. I mean, they've got the whole thing here. I'm going to get this framed. Seriously.
Get it fingerprinted.
Yeah, so they did Highway to Oblivion. You know, they opened right up with that. Fury of the Storm. That's a good choice
Yeah,
from their second
awesome.
album. The Last Dragonborn.
The Last Dragonborn!
Now, this is exciting for you because, you love
Because-
Skyrim and you spend most of your day. That's what you know. No, go ahead.
So I do love Skyrim. I
Yeah.
first started playing it back when it came out years ago.
Yeah.
But I was only able to play it for like a couple months.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, I want to say like 4 months ago, you finally bought it for me on Nintendo Switch.
Yes.
And every free chance that I get, I
That's
am
what you're
playing
rocking.
Skyrim. I'm almost at level 70.
Well, all right. Well, tell me about Skyrim. What makes Skyrim so great?
Oh my god, so
I mean,
many things.
you loved, Breath of the Wild.
Breath of the Wild was great. I love Skyrim for the same reason, because it's an open world. It's a very complete world. There's so much storyline. Like, if it was just the same thing over and over again, I don't think that I could do it. But there's a million side quests that you can go down, and they're all very different.
Right.
All the locations are unique. All the characters have something unique to offer. So it really feels like that's my alternate life.
Yeah.
In this magical land where dragons exist, and
Yeah.
I can be a mage.
Right.
I can destroy things with fire from my hands.
Well, I mean, you're to the point you have houses and multiple.
Oh, I have multiple houses.
And you can design these houses. Right down to the plates and cups.
Yeah,
It's-
I'm almost a millionaire. Like, it's great.
Yeah.
I have legendary skills.
Right.
Yeah, I'm so powerful that I could kill a dragon single-handedly.
Yeah.
No big deal.
So.
But
go ahead.
that's why I love it. It's a complete world. It's a full world that you can get lost in. It's like an alternate reality.
Yeah. Oh, it's incredibly compelling. Like very, very rich world. And
it does feel empowering too, because
Sure.
you can feel while you're playing it, like how much more powerful you become than these other people
yeah,
or
yeah.
whatever enemies you're facing.
Yeah, it's ironic because in many ways I feel like Skyrim is the apex of what a video game can do. Like where it is, and I don't want to get lost on this because this can turn into a massive philosophical and esoteric conversation. But one of the reasons I think video games are so wonderful is this very thing, is that sense of empowerment that it can give. Of course, you want it to translate elsewhere, but we'll just leave it at that. I think that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. Not to mention there's so much magic in this game, and it's real. Like, it's
Right.
such an accepted part of the culture that
Yes.
people will talk to you about magic, and they'll teach it to you, and they'll ask you questions about it. And, like, I just love that. I love that you can actually use the magic, and that it's something that's not taboo.
Yeah, and the world, it just accepts it and is built around, okay, there might be people that, practice this sort of shit, and you prepare for such.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they talk about hauntings like it's a real thing, ghosts are a real thing, Draugr, dragons, giant spiders, all of these fairy tale creatures that are actually real. But it's like
Right.
they've taken all of the great parts of mythology and put it into a world.
Yeah, and they're clearly pulling from a lot of different references, like the Nords are definitely like the Vikings or whatever.
Yeah.
and there's a lot of that. What would you say? I mean, well, the storyline's great too. I've played it as well. I'm playing it as well. Of course, I joined the Imperials, but and you're
Only
with the
because
rebels.
they're in the seat of power.
Well,
I sympathize a lot more with the Stormcloaks, but I get it that Ulfric Stormcloaks are racist, and he's also a tool for the Altmere Dominion. So.
Right. And the only thing that can defeat the Dominion is actually the Empire. But whatever. That's getting into massive subjects. Let me ask you this. So, which game do you think is better? Like Breath of the Wild or Skyrim? Ooh, tough one, huh?
Yeah, actually, I think maybe Skyrim is better.
Yeah?
I love Breath of the Wild. It's got a lot of similarities,
Yeah.
And sometimes while I'm playing Skyrim, I even push the buttons as if I were going to pull out the glider from Breath
From
of the
Breath
Wild.
of the Wild, yeah.
I wish you could do that, but you can't.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Skyrim just has more variety to it. Yeah, so there's things like when you're running around in the wild in Breath of the Wild, any monsters you come across, you have to fight them. Basically, if you get close enough, that's your only option.
Right.
In Skyrim, you have the option to like shout and calm the beast down, or you can you can't fast travel while enemies are nearby, but you've got more options
To get away. You don't have to, like,
You don't
engage.
always have to fight.
Yeah. That is cool. I mean, I would say, like, I agree with you. There's a lot more variety. Like, you get more variety of, like, character choices and all these different things. What your main character right now? What race?
I'm an elf. I'm a wood elf.
Just a wood elf. Okay,
Yeah.
wood elf. Got it. Yeah. Mine's an Argonian. You know, those lizard Jews. But, anyway, so...
I would love to be a Khajiit, but...
Yeah, they're so cute.
Yeah, they are so cute.
The thing is, you know, where Breath of the Wild puts it over the top for me is... I don't feel like you ever stress playing Breath of the Wild. Like, you're engaged in a massive story, in an incredible history, and all this amazing stuff going on. But...
It's very calm.
It's such a calm
peaceful.
game. Yeah, it's a peaceful game. And also, Breath of the Wild, partly due to its limited nature, or more limited nature compared to Skyrim, I feel like you don't experience, like, in Skyrim, I feel like I hear a lot of things over and over again. And that gets annoying after a while. Like, even when, like, the person following you and you want to trade with them, they'll say the same thing every time. Like, oh, I carry your burdens, or let's trade then, or, you know, something like that. As to where, with Breath of the Wild, like, you never really get that repeated thing.
Yeah, well, that's just my problem, because I'm kind of a kleptomaniac when I play. I steal everything. And then I carry too much, and I have to ask my follower to be my pack mule.
Yeah, I love it. You're so fucking evil. It's so hot.
I play all sides.
Yeah. You're such an egoist.
Like, I don't worship the Daedra, but I'll serve them.
Yeah, right. It's like, okay, well, only until I can kill you.
Give me your powerful staff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, all right. No, fair enough. I mean, an amazing game. Certainly a game you can get lost in, you know. But it was awesome to bring it full circle. It was awesome for, you know, for DragonForce to do the whole song, Last of the Dragonborn.
Yes.
You know, from their latest album that is all about that. That's literally about Skyrim, and even on you know, on stage they were showing it off and everything. Yeah, you know, funny thing, like, that DragonForce was one of the first things you and I connected on.
It really was.
Yeah, because you came over to my old place in New Hampshire, and I have my DragonForce scarf, which I've had for 10, 12 years, you know, forever.
I think what happened was I told you that recently I had discovered this band DragonForce.
Oh, that's right. And then I went and got my
listening to it.
scarf.
Yeah, you brought it out, and I was like, oh my God,
Yeah.
this is amazing.
Well, it was amazing to me because I've never met anybody, like, I had barely ever met anybody that even knew who DragonForce was.
Let alone a woman.
Yes, let alone a woman. There you go. It was really, like, that blew my mind about you. And I remember that was one of the first things where, like, oh, I got to be friends with this gal. You know, and, well, anyway.
The rest is history.
The rest is history, as they say. So let's go down the rest of their so they did Last Dragonborn. We got lost on that one. You've always had amazing tastes in music.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's really something. Ashes of the Dawn, you mentioned that, from Reaching into Infinity. Heart Demolition. Then they did this funny, like, they brought out a banjo and everything, and they did this whole thing around Farm Simulator. That was hilarious.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, that was really great.
That's a good time.
Yeah. Then they did Blackfire.
Blackfire.
Yeah. And they did Cry Thunder. Remembrance Day. Then they did Valley of the Damned. I was amazed they did 2 songs from their first album, because, again, most people didn't know DragonForce until their third album.
Yeah, yeah.
So for them to go back like that, I thought that was great. In the U.S., I mean, in Europe, everybody knew who the fuck they were. But,
right. Well, Europe's a totally different world.
Yes.
For metal.
Yes. Yeah, it's a proper one. Like, they have actual taste, unlike fucking Americans. So, anyway, Yeah, so then they stopped. They went for their, like they were like, oh, good night, Worcester and everything. And but you knew they were going to do a couple encores. Now that's just like a thing. Like every band does it, whether people chant or not. But I was amazed, and I think they were as well.
Everybody was chanting.
They were chanting, DragonForce, DragonForce. I mean, and it was fucking loud. People stomping their feet. Like this was one of the biggest calls I'd ever heard in my concert going history for a band to get their asses back out on the stage.
I know, I was yelling as loud as I could.
Oh, you were,
I'm amazed that I didn't lose my voice.
I know. It was loud. It was awesome. And I know the band, like even they said it, they couldn't believe it, like just how crazy it was.
They also said that they had to play through the fire and the flames because they would get lynched. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, which is probably true. I knew they were going to do that. But they ended up actually doing 2 songs for the encore. And they did My Heart Will Go On, the Celine Dion cover, which is from Extreme Power Metal, their most recent album. And that was great. Like that was awesome. Mm-hmm. I was glad that they did that because everybody can sing along with that song because everybody knows that song.
Yeah, we're all singing along.
Yeah, absolutely. And then they did Through the Fire and the Flames, and of course everybody just goes nuts and whatever. People were passing out and everything. I was amazed. There was a fucking mosh pit in the Palladium. I don't think I've ever seen that. As many times as we've been to the Palladium, I don't think I've ever seen a mosh pit going on. But they had one.
And we were pretty close to it.
Yeah, I was kind of getting ready. Like I stood on the other side of you because if it was going to get bumping that way, Anyway.
Well, you are a very good wall for people to run into.
Yes, I have been called that many times. Who ordered the wall? So anyway, so amazing performance. And again, I have no complaints about it being like their set being only an hour because I couldn't take 2 hours.
Yeah, and there are so many bands, so much variety.
What was your favorite band of the night? I mean,
well, obviously DragonForce.
Right, outside of them.
Well, it'd probably go in reverse order of the way that they played.
Yeah.
I think it'd be DragonForce, then Firewind, then Visions of Atlantis, then Seven Spires.
Yeah, I would, and I love Firewind, but because Gus G is just amazing. But I'd probably invert that middle. Like I thought Visions of Atlantis. I just love the guts that they had and like the performance. Not that the stage looked that. I mean, they did a good job with the stage and the video wall and everything, but like, just the whole act that they put on, I thought that's so rare. I really, really liked that. And the whole band was like consistent with it. It wasn't just the person up front. Like when we saw Battle Beast, like you have, what's her name? Nora, the lead singer. Like she'll be wearing like a Viking outfit and it's really cool and everything, but the rest of the band is just kind of dressed in, And so, but the whole band was in sync with the matter. Like I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, well, the lead male singer for that band had an amazing
incredible
voice.
Range.
Yeah, it was almost like the lead singer of Camelot.
Yeah,
that's what it reminded me of.
Yeah, like Tommy there. Yeah, amazing. Agreed. Yeah, so I mean, what a night of metal. I mean, and get that many bands. It was spectacular. You're totally right.
Even the next day, I still felt good about it. I was like, I wish we were still at the concert. That was
you said that. Oh, you were glowing. Oh, it was awesome. Anyway, yeah, amazing night. So we share all of this. Basically, any of these bands you could really enjoy going to see. But like, I wanted to talk about it because I've talked about DragonForce every time a new album has come out, and many have come out over the 10 years of Sovereign Tech's history. But I wanted to say and let people know, oh no, they're just as intense live as they are on their album. They're really playing. This isn't bullshit, and I wanted to make that abundantly clear. Because, outside of Kiss, they're one of the bands that I consider it like it's demanded of me to talk about them when there's something to talk about. So yeah, and of course, I mean, it's just, again, it's one of the very first things you and I connected about, so it was fun to do that as well.
Yeah.
Great night. Anything else you want to talk about on that from that night?
No, it was spectacular.
Yeah.
I hope we get to do that again soon.
Oh yeah. Well, we'll be engaging in some van life coming up, and maybe we'll hit some concerts as we're going around, depending what's going on.
We're gonna have to be checking on the regular for concerts because especially when we head out west, there's gonna be a lot of opportunities for us to see some major acts performing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I already saw some tours that I was intrigued by. Like Wasp is doing a North American tour for the first time in like probably almost 20 years.
Wow.
You know, that's intriguing to me. There's some others, because there's a lot of tours, DragonForce being one example. There were a lot of tours that got kind of backed up, you know, by a couple of years because of 2020 and all that was. Because we were originally going to see Rammstein. We were supposed to see Beast in Black. There are a lot of bands we were supposed to catch in 2020 that just never happened.
Yeah, it's such a shame. And
Yeah.
they even talked about it at the concert. They said,
Right.
you know, we haven't been able to do this for the last 2 years or whatever.
Yeah.
And can I just say, it feels like the pandemic, or whatever that was, the mass psychosis that was the pandemic, feels like it's officially over now. Nobody's asking for vaccine cards. Nobody's asking for masks. They
Yeah.
recommend it. And sometimes you'll see people wearing them. But just all of the restrictions that were going on for the
Yeah.
longest time, there's no evidence of that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, when I initially bought the tickets for DragonForce, and this was months and months and months and months ago. I mean, yeah, it was a long time ago. This is a long time coming. I almost forgot that it was coming up. And when I bought it, like the tickets actually said, you know, make sure you bring your vaccine card, make sure you bring all of that. But when we went there, like almost nobody's wearing masks. I mean, you could count the people on your hand who were. And of course I want people to do whatever makes them comfortable. But there were no checks on, like, you know, for vaccination cards, nothing like that.
Yeah, no.
And Massachusetts is as status as it fucking gets, next to maybe California, or New York.
When we were there on Halloween,
Yeah.
we had to wear masks everywhere we went.
Yes. Yeah. It was. Anyway, I agree with you. Like, it really feels like, okay, this shit's, at least in the United States, is effectively done. You know, there was just nothing like that, or, you know, there were no restrictions. I mean, in anywhere we went in Massachusetts, there were no restrictions, which even a couple months ago, that wasn't the case. Because, you know, we have to travel there, you know, often enough, or, you know, anyway. So.
Yeah, we have friends there.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
So we go sometimes.
Yeah. So, well, which is good news, because, again, we plan on taking a road trip across the entire country. Or at least, you know, 48 of the states we intend to hit. And so, do you want to get in talking about that? We got subjects we're going to get into later. We've got some, and we're going to review some movies. We're just having fun with this episode. You know, it's good to have. I had a couple serious ones come out recently, and I'm like, yeah, let's do an episode. Let's get Ellen on. Let's have some fun.
You know, when I show up here, we just talk about fun things.
That's right. We have a good time. So, and we're going to do that. Anyway, so this has come up on other podcasts. I've recently been on the Vanu podcast a couple times. It was talked about there. Though, or at least one of those appearances has been in the Sovereign Tech feed as well. But yeah, you know, Ellen and I, you and I, Ellen.
Yes, you and I, Brian.
Yeah. We, how did this start? Like, I'm trying to think of it. It was months and months ago. But
yes.
How did it start?
Yeah, we've been talking about this for a while, and I keep wondering how it originated.
Yeah.
It was very mutual, but
Right.
I think originally it might have been my suggestion.
Yes.
I want to say.
Yes.
Because we both love traveling.
Yes.
And at the time we were considering, because we're renting now, but we wanted to move maybe to a more permanent place.
Right.
And I think it was like shortly after I started working at my contract position at the biotech facility that I was working at. And it was a very like steady job. The hours were long.
Yeah.
I wasn't having the greatest time there.
Right.
So, you know, that was part of what motivated me to push this. But also, like, we don't have a mortgage. We don't have any children.
Yep.
There's nothing that's tying us to this location.
No, right.
And it's a really great opportunity, especially considering, like, if I am going to settle down and really dig into a career,
Yeah.
then I want to take this chance while we still have the opportunity.
Right.
You know, I don't want it to pass us by. So we kind of started talking about it, like what it would look like. Eventually we decided that we were going to buy a camper van.
Yeah. So that's pretty much how I remember it too. Like at one point, you know, it just kind of became, because like your contract was going to end, which it has ended. It ended in March, and we're like, let's just go do it. And you know, my work is remote. I can do what I do from anywhere, so that's not a problem. You know, and I've been that way for a decade now, over a decade. Yeah, I remember it basically happening like that. And I think with COVID, we kind of felt as well, like, okay, we don't know where the best place to like even be is right now.
Yeah.
And so we were wanting to be pretty agile. And admittedly, in my opinion, right now, like in April of 2022, I've never been like an economic alarmist of any kind, but I think things are really bad. And it's not just gas prices. And it's not, I mean, it is relative to supply chain and whatever. But I think a lot of pipers are going to have to get paid. They're going to get paid, but it's going to be ugly. And I think being very agile right now, you know, and being very, shall we say, lightweight or not tied down is to many a person's benefit. You know, I'm not saying that this is what you have to do, but I'm just saying it is certainly a survival strategy in the present economic political climate that we live in. We were planning on this long before I felt that way, but I'm definitely feeling that right now. Like I think things are ugly. You know,
Yeah,
inflation. I'll go down the list. Go ahead.
Sorry, things have ramped up a lot since COVID started.
Right.
I mean, that's when people started buying toilet paper off the shelves.
Yeah.
Things were hard to find in grocery stores.
Yeah.
And at the time, that was just a supply chain issue.
Right.
So we were like stocking up on canned food. We still have a little stockpile, but it's not like we ever really needed it. You know, things were still there for us.
Right.
It's just recently, especially since the war in Ukraine started, that like gas prices have gotten ridiculously expensive.
Well, that's another part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, and also the housing market is crazy.
Yes.
Like the cost for supplies to build houses are like 150% of what they were even just a few years ago. Yeah. So everything is becoming more expensive. Yeah, it's a good time to not have a lot to take care of.
Yeah, exactly. Bingo. Yes. And so, you know, I think a lot of people, and you've certainly encountered it, where a lot of people have, you know, said to you, how are you doing this? Like what, you know, and they always have 10 billion questions or critiques or whatever.
Yeah, mostly people, I think, are, like, they could never imagine themselves doing it because it's a risky thing to do.
Sure.
To give up on your stable home life.
Right.
And to take to the road, and like you only have yourself and your skills and your wits to rely on. And I feel confident in my ability, and I know you do too.
Sure.
But partially that's because we've both had to do this before independently.
Yes.
And you and I both have survived some really sketchy situations.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. We're survivors, straight up.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think most people have had that experience, so they
Right.
don't even imagine that they could do something like this.
Yeah, yeah. I think another part of it, you know, is that for a lot of people, because you've got yourself, but then you have your partner, and I think most people are either consciously or unconsciously terrified
Oh,
of
yeah.
spending that much time with their partner. But that's not a problem with van life. That's a problem with your relationship.
Definitely. Well, if there's one thing that the lockdowns taught people is that their relationships are not as good as they thought they were.
Oh, yes.
Because there's so many people that are saying like, oh, I can't spend that much time with my spouse
Yep.
or my family.
Yep.
But you and I, like, we're just so similar.
Yes.
We get along so easy. We just flow together.
We do. We really do.
There's no need for us to ever spend time apart.
Yeah.
And it's not like I need you there with me all the time.
Right.
We're not attached at the hip, you know, like we still do our separate things, but
Yep.
but we just love each other.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and the other part that I think a lot of people forget, like, we've been together, for 3 years. Over 3 years now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's over 3 years.
Yeah, I mean,
our 4-year anniversary is going to be coming up soon.
Yeah, so, like, I think a lot of people, because the thing is, we don't hang out with a lot of people, and a lot of people are always like, are you sure you want to, it's like, we've been together forever, or, we've been together for years. Like, it's not like, oh, we met last month and we're going, van lifing or something.
Yeah, no, I mean, even during the lockdowns when I was taking college courses from, like, I was
together all the time.
Here, 24/7 with you because you work from home too.
Right.
And that we were totally fine.
Oh, it's wonderful. Yeah. I mean, and it's great having you home all the time again. Like, I love it.
Yeah, I love it too.
Yeah. And so, I get it, and we are, just to get into more of like what our plan is. So we are starting this in early May is the plan. I mean, you always got to be nimble on these things, but
yep, we're trying to get all of the final pieces in place right now.
Right, and we've decided to go with we're not doing an RV, we're doing a van, like a van that is being professionally converted, and like adapted and everything.
Yeah, I would have loved to have done the conversion ourselves, but it would have been twice as expensive and taken twice as long.
Exactly.
So we just went with a company that does prefabricated. They do the whole thing in house.
Yeah, we're rocking a Ford Transit. I don't mind saying that. And they're converting it and whatever. And now the reason we're going with a van, and we talked about this. I mean, again, we've been planning this for months, and like everything gets overanalyzed.
Yeah, this
everything.
We're not flying by the seat of our pants here.
No.
This is an impulsive decision.
No, the farthest from.
No, this is a well planned out.
Yes.
Benchmark in our lives.
Yes, exactly. And so and we've really gone over it many times. Like the reason we've been planning this for months. The reason we haven't talked about it is because if at any point we decided, okay, we actually don't want to do it, we didn't want to have to retract anything.
Yeah, and we could still change our minds.
We could, yeah.
At this point, we're really like closing in on everything being completed.
Right.
But yeah, it was still kind of speculative for a few months. Like we're getting our stuff together, getting all of our ducks in a row. Mm-hmm. But now we're finally making the moves to do it.
Yeah.
And it's not just talk at this point.
No.
Doing
This is happening. I mean, we're finishing up conversation around the toilet this morning. As in like what toilet are we going to use? Are we going to get? Anyway, and we'll talk about more details when we're on the road. A lot of what we'll be doing. But again, we decided to go with a van and not an RV because a van you can park anywhere.
Yeah, unlike a school bus or an RV.
Exactly. Like one of the things that highlighted this for us was when we went to Niagara Falls in September. Like you could park in the park, like all night long. And arguably for days if you wanted. If you
can fit into a regular parking
exactly.
spot.
They specifically said it can't be an RV, that can park there. And we kind of came to the realization, okay, this is a thing like in a lot of places where it makes sense for us to park and that we want to see and visit. So having a van is, I mean, it gives us a degree of like, you're a little more incognito, you're like,
I like the nimbleness of it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a little more flexible. Like
right.
You can take it to more places.
Right.
I don't think you have to be as concerned about driving it long distances.
Yeah. And also, I mean, then it's a car because it's an investment,
Yeah.
But then it's a vehicle that you can use somewhat regularly, even if we're not on the road, even if we're not doing van lifing or whatever.
But it'd still make a great camper.
Right.
If we just want to go camping for the weekend.
Precisely. So I think there's just a ton of advantages to using a van. Granted, if there's any more than just me, you, and the cat, and Captain, which we've been training him on getting used to being on the road.
Oh, yeah.
That's been an adventure in itself. Yes.
But he's doing great.
He's doing great. Get him high and he's, on CBD and he's doing wonderful. But, if we had any more people, kids or whatever, we'd probably have to go with an RV. I cannot imagine a van, working well for more than two people.
Yeah, it'd get really crowded in there.
Yeah. So, Anyway, so that's the plan, and we are going to be doing, like I said, we plan on doing pretty much 48 states. We're going to be northerly, in the summer, and then as temperatures get colder, we'll start swinging down southerly, and hitting all the states down there. So as far as I know a lot of people are probably that are hearing this are probably wanting, oh man, let's connect when you come into my state or whatever, and we're totally down with that.
Yeah, sure. We can, hang out with your fans.
Yeah, have meetups or whatever,
cool people that are out there that want to meet us.
Yeah, I think that'd be awesome. But that's the other thing. You've got a great schedule laid out. You have an awesome spreadsheet.
Yep, I've got a spreadsheet. Look out, world.
Yeah.
I've got it all planned out.
You are dangerous with those spreadsheets.
Oh, man, I love them. I go crazy about spreadsheets.
It's so great. You got your little micro PC, and I just see you there, and and you're in LibreOffice with the spreadsheets and going nuts. That's so great. So we'll figure it. But as well as we plan out, obviously, we might be stuck in Michigan longer than we planned, or we might be stuck in, Iowa longer than we planned, or something like that, or New Mexico, who knows?
Or we might extend our southern visit so that we don't have to drive back up north in the cold months of spring.
Yeah, I mean, even doing it for a year is a very loose time frame.
Yes.
Because there's really nothing, we plan on coming back to New Hampshire. For me, New Hampshire is the most beautiful place on the planet. You don't have to agree with that statement, but
but I do.
Well, there you go. So
there's everything here, everything I possibly could want.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, I love it here. It's the reason I've been here for 10 years, over 10 years now.
Same. This has been my home since 2013.
Yeah, exactly. For me, 2011. I expect to come back, but yeah, there's no rush. Like that. That's really. But anyway, so yeah, what's your favorite state? What are you looking forward to the most on this one? For me, it's New Mexico.
It's tough. I mean, there's so many natural phenomena that I want to see, the geodesic lake in Yellowstone.
Yeah,
very
Yellowstone's going to be great. Yeah.
The rainforest in Oregon. I'm very excited for that.
Yep.
Yeah, there's so much the Southwest that I want to see. I'm excited to see. I know this is probably going to sound crazy to you, but there's lots of California that I want to see.
Right.
There's the desert. I've never been there.
Mm-hmm.
The Great Salt Plains. The crazy rock formations like the Buttes.
Sure.
What is it? Utah, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot, even around the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
There's so many state parks in that area.
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm looking forward to the most.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and we're going to be recording, we'll record episodes from all these locations. Again, I have my whole setup, it's all very pocketable. So actually, if anything, there's going to be a ton more content, because a lot of what makes up the day-to-day life, in a modern 21st century home, we're not going to be dealing with.
Yeah, no, actually, living in this house that we live in now, a lot of my time is spent
house maintenance.
Yeah, cleaning and cooking and just taking care of, because we have so much stuff.
Right.
There's so much space here.
Yeah.
And homemaking could really be a full-time job for me, but it's not going to be that. I'm going to be writing the newsletter.
Exactly. Bingo. Yes, that is going to be another exciting thing that's coming, and we will certainly, be keeping everybody posted on that. In fact, it's only waiting on me. I've got to finish up my sections, but this is, so I guess we could talk a little bit about it,
sure.
The newsletter. So it is the Sovereign Technica newsletter. We are using Substack as the backbone of it. There will be so correct me if I'm wrong, there's this free version and a pay-for version.
Yes, yeah, there'll be multiple payment tiers, so you can choose how much you want to pay monthly, but I highly recommend that, because there's going to be a lot more awesome content for people who are paying as opposed to the free users. You'll still get great stories as a free user, but as a paid subscriber, you'll have access to so much more. You'll even be able to contribute do the newsletter if you want
Yes,
to.
we definitely want that. That's something I've always wanted, because I know the Sovereign Tech listeners are just so fucking brilliant, because I've met you people and talked with many of you, and oh man, it just excites me so much. The having that people can get their voices heard in that way. I think is wonderful. It's one of my favorite things about the live Q&As that we do on Patreon. Is when people get to come on and talk, and I mean, just the greatest ideas, greatest concepts get discussed.
Yeah, that's so much fun.
Yeah.
And I love being able to pull from that pool of creativity, and to be able to share such great and sometimes novel ideas with an entire audience.
Yeah, I mean, and we're going to be covering a ton of stuff. Science, history. I mean, I've seen it. You've got this thing loaded. I did a newsletter years ago, or like in 2018, I think was the last time I had done it, or maybe, yeah, something like that. But this is so much more, and I'm so excited.
Yeah, I might have gone overboard, but I think it's going to be really worthwhile, and I think it's going to hopefully encourage people to want to donate, because we're putting in so much work.
Yes.
And I'm doing a lot of the writing. You're going to be doing a couple sections here and there.
Yeah.
But yeah, mostly it's going to be that's my main gig.
Yeah.
While we're on the road.
Right. This is what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so, this is going live before we are on the road.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Well, again, it's waiting on me. So, I'm going to be doing short fiction again, and I know a lot of people love that.
Oh, I'm so excited. I can't wait to see what you write.
Because I write erotic shit.
That's all you write is just sexy stories.
That's all I can do.
Well, besides your Android book.
Yeah.
You did write something serious and technical.
I have done that on occasion, and I've guest written on other publications, and that's been serious. I can do it. I can do it without the sexy, but why?
It's so much more fun with the sexy.
Yeah, exactly. So you're going to be getting that. That'll be part of the paid tier, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, this is really exciting. And again, a major part of it is you, scientist, Ellen Sovryn, doing your own research.
Yes.
And this is what's so key about it. This isn't just curation. Curation's a part of it, but you are going to be, bringing on original research, original theories. There's hardcore value here.
I'll be making connections. So if I'm featuring a story from another website, let's say, like Gizmodo,
yeah,
I'm not just going to be saying, here's a cool article that I think you might like to read.
Right.
I'm also going to be doing a write-up surrounding the topic.
Yes.
And I might even be referencing other articles as well.
Exactly.
Or if you want more scholarly information, look to this resource.
Yeah. But you'll also be bringing in, again, your own theories. What is this? What does this mean? How does this applied? How is this, what is this going to do in the future, or etc. This is very original stuff. Yes, there's some curation, but there's a lot of originality going into this. Because anyway, we'll just leave it at that.
What were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say the last thing, people need is just another, because that's kind of what I did, other than my short fiction, which is probably why maybe I've been told that was the most popular, that was the part that everybody loved.
Yes, it was.
My original newsletter. But a lot of times I was kind of curating. I'd give commentary, but a lot of times I was curating, things. And it's not going to be just that. That's not,
there's so much.
I don't think the world needs that.
Yeah.
The world does need some curation, because there's just so much shit on the internet, and I mean that literally. But at the same time, I don't want it to be just that. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's actually what most newsletters that I've looked into do, is just they'll link to an article, they'll give you a brief little snippet or a hook line, or but that's it. And they might write an article that's 5 or 6 paragraphs about something that's happened in their life.
Yeah.
But this newsletter is going to be much more than that.
Right. And I'm sure, again, there will be, as we're exploring, while we're van lifing around the country, there's going to be things that we get inspired by, and that will require our own research, because I plan on going to some weird places, and checking out some odd shit, because there's plenty of it in this country.
Yeah.
And, okay, like, well, where does that, through the lens of Sovereign Tech, what does this mean? And I think there's something there.
Well, I'm really looking forward to working with you on creating this newsletter.
Yeah, more like I'm working with you. but yeah, exactly. This is incredibly exciting. And I know I've already read so much of what you did, and I'm just like, oh my God. Like, I'd be all over this if I wasn't, like a
behind
co-conspirator.
The scenes.
Yeah.
Right.
So, anyway, so that's a major thing that you're doing, while we're on the road, and that is a kind of a side benefit of being on this journey.
Yeah, and hopefully through the newsletter, our followers, our listeners, our subscribers can actually be part of the journey with us, because we're going to be sharing insights from our life on the road,
right?
Travel locations that we've been to, what we really liked, what we didn't, maybe even some photos. Yep. So it's going to be somewhat interactive.
Yeah, absolutely. And that gets into, and again, we'll share details and links and everything for when this is ready to go. But it really won't be long from now. It can't be. So something I want to bring up, because I think a lot of people would ask, okay, all right, so you're comfortable with each other, so you can be in a tin can for a year together, and you're all right. And you got, you talked about your toilet situation, kind of got that figured out, and blah, 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 but there's going to be so many amenities perhaps that you don't have. And, the comment I want to make on that is when we were talking about like not renting anymore and like getting a place more permanent, like you and and I can edit this out if you don't want me to talk about it, but like you and I, like we were talking about fucking like going into the boondocks, and having like a yurt or something, like having an incredibly simplified life anyway.
Yeah, we were looking at like cabin houses, prefabricated, almost like sheds.
Yeah.
But a little more, like they had some density to them.
Yeah, and they're like 2-story or something like that. But they're smaller, whatever. But my point being is you don't get it. Like, we're not actually giving up anything. In many ways, this is how we want to live. Like, not necessarily the traveling, but the more like not dealing with the 21st century home.
Yeah, I think a lot of it for me is the simplification. Mm-hmm. It allows you to spend more time doing what you really love, what you feel passionate about, and not so much just taking care of your stuff. Like the laundry and the vacuuming and the cooking and the cleaning of the toilets, like that just takes up so much time. And when I was working at my last contract position, that was all that I had time for on the weekends. Like maybe we could squeeze in like a movie night or some video games, but most of the time I was literally just doing maintenance. Yeah. And that was really grinding on me because I felt like I was losing what I loved the most about myself. Right. And I wasn't able to pursue any of the artistic inclinations that I had. But at least when simplifying your life, you have time to do things like that. And then secondly, but also important, I want to minimize the impact that we're having on the environment around us. Yeah. Like, I want to live more in line with what we're naturally meant to, and get more in touch with our roots again.
Yeah, this is a big part of it. I mean, on the flip side for me also, like, you have less bills. I don't have to work as many hours, because like my work schedule for the past, especially few years, has been nuts. And, so there's an advantage there. And this is what it ultimately comes down to. And you just hit it, and I'm glad you got to it, is it gives us the chance to think less materially and get in touch, more with ourselves, our inner world. Because we're not so concerned about maintaining the outer world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we'll be more in touch with our empathosphere.
Oh man. Bringing up some Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious Universe right there.
I just heard this word earlier today,
it's
and
great.
I love it. I
The
think it's
empathosphere.
perfect. Yes.
Yeah. We're going to put a pin on that because we might not get to that here, but we're going to talk. That's going to be a conversation that's going to come up. We've got some wild shit to talk about on Sovereign Tech in the near future. So, and if you're already a member of Patreon, there's insane conversations happening.
Literally insane.
Yeah, you came up to me the other day because you got done listening to the Wednesday Q&A, and you just said, "Okay, we're talking about that now." You're just
like I know you've been so behind the scenes to me. You've been telling me for months that you want to start talking about some of your more crazy mystical ideas.
Yes.
And I know how significant it is to you to that aspect of life, the spirituality, the mysticism. And it's been part of your life basically since you were a child.
Yes.
And like that's part of the reason that you went for your Doctor of Divinity.
Oof. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
I just know how significant it is to you, and I'm really proud of you for being brave enough to say these things and to not worry about losing your listeners. I'm also amazed because I just can't believe those words are coming out of your mouth. And
that's someone saying them.
It's not a bad thing,
Yeah.
I think what you're saying really speaks to me, at least. I don't know if it does to anyone else.
I haven't lost a patron yet, and I can't believe that. Like, I'm blown away that hasn't happened. So I'm guessing it resonates with them. But go ahead.
But I'm just so happy that you're finally following your heart and talking about something that is that central to who you are.
Thank you. Like, I appreciate that. And I'm particularly glad you said that because, well, I don't have to say it for one, because I don't even know how to say it. You said it better than I think I could. But like, yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. And that's the thing that more than any other, and I mean it, any other single human on the planet, like, I mean, there's someone else who afterwards I've shared some of these matters with, but like you've known some very deep things about me for years that you were the first person to ever know, and like so, yeah. So coming from you, thank you. And it's actually part of what made us connect even more was I would say these things to you, and you just ask more questions and just be like, tell me more. Like you're like
I
hungry
didn't
for
judge you.
No.
I wasn't,
right.
skeptical. I just wanted to hear what you had to say.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, but so far so good. Because, yeah, but that's the thing is I think these things are important now. Their time is now. Even if I've hinted at them for a decade, even if, I could have talked about them previously or something like that, it doesn't really matter. The time for a lot of these things that I want to get into is right now. Provably, more so than ever. And yeah, it's going to be exciting, and living this way that we are going to be living is, in my opinion, the only way that somebody could even begin to be able to express their truth on these matters, and have the freedom to explore and expand and discuss. What do you got?
Yeah, I actually think that there's some historical precedents for that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Stories of like rabbis living in caves for 7 years and
Yeah.
then coming out and, being ready to preach to the world
Right.
about the truths that they discovered while they were there.
Yeah, exactly. Well said. So it's going to be a journey for everybody. Anybody who wants to come along. And, if you find it's not the road you want to walk, that's okay. And there's always going to be plenty of entertaining stuff too. But yeah, so this is coming, and do you have anything else you want to bring up about van lifing? We can discuss more, as we're on it. But
yeah, I think it's just going to be an ongoing conversation because we are new to van lifing. We've never done this before.
Right.
Obviously we love camping. We love spending time outside.
Yeah. I mean, we've tested those waters, and we've talked about it. We even did a whole episode from a fucking lean-to.
Yep.
That we stayed in for like 2-3 days. I mean,
it was totally dark. You could hear the campfire cracking in the back. We were tucked in our sleeping bags.
We've roughed it. We've slept under the stars. We've done the whole thing.
Multiple days in a row.
Exactly.
But even that, I don't think is going to compare to this year-long journey.
Right.
Like, we really are going to be out of our element.
Right. Yeah. And we'll share what we learned because we're gonna learn. Like,
it's a process of discovery.
Yeah, as great as our planning may be, there's going to be things that we'll probably have been wrong about, or that we need to alter, or whatever.
Yeah, but we're both relatively handy people. We can work on vehicles.
Yes.
Yeah, we've got survival skills.
Yeah.
We can figure it out. Like, I know how to forage for food in the wild. You know how to wield a knife. I mean, we're all set.
Yeah. Yeah, and before anybody thinks we're going too crazy, I mean, we're still bringing our Nintendo Switches.
Yeah. Don't worry, we're gonna have like a solar-powered charging station.
Yeah. I mean, there's some high-tech aspects to this, no doubt, but it's very rugged high-tech. The way tech should be. None of this fragile shit. We're gonna have internet. Yes, we'll have smartphones with us. Maybe someday we can get rid of those, but there's still those aspects to it. That are part of the 21st century life, as it were. But yeah, anyway, we can get into more of that as we experience it. And who knows? Maybe at some point we'll just be like, yeah, fuck that shit too. I mean, I've joked many times. Maybe at some point halfway through, we just finally say, you know what? And we pull the van over, and we just get out of the van. And we just walk off.
I'm done with this now.
Yeah, it's like, whatever. Who knows how it's going to work out.
Yeah, we could get tired of it after the first couple months. And just come back home. It's
possible. That's entirely possible. But at least we always have. I mean, this is the thing. This is the other thing too. Because I've lived out of. I mean, when I first moved to New Hampshire, I lived out of a truck. I lived out of a Ford Expedition. And that's all I had. Yeah. And I'll admit it. Like, I loved it. I really, really loved it. And the thing is, like, okay, yes, you're dependent upon, the petrol economy, right? You're dependent upon petroleum.
Yep, you're dependent on gasoline being there when you need it.
Exactly. But at the same time, like most houses are too, okay?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, most people today couldn't survive without heating oil. And let's not forget where our electricity originates from.
Exactly.
Coal-powered plants.
That all comes from essentially the petrol economy.
Yeah.
But but the thing is, like, when you have a car, to my mind, no matter what happens in your life, and especially when you own the car flat out, you always have a home. You always have somewhere where you can be. Cat's going around. He'll always have a home too. But that's a really powerful thing that I think people kind of like forget. Boy, he's running.
He's just up right now.
Boy, he just jumped up.
He just crawled up the ceiling.
Yeah, amazing. Anyway, but this is a really important thing. Is like, and I don't think people realize that. Like, as long as I have a car, I have this just like this low level comfort.
Yes.
That I always have a roof over my head, essentially. It might not be the most comfortable, but it's always there. And
you can always run away with it.
Right,
if you
exactly.
need to.
Exactly. So if, in 2 months we want to come back, that's fine. We've got, our home's on the road, our home's on wheels. It's okay, and then we can figure out things from there. So
yeah,
anyway,
we can just find a place to camp out until we figure out something more permanent.
Yeah, precisely. So yeah, I think this is going to be, I'm so excited for this. And I know you are too.
Yes, incredibly excited.
Yeah. Now, you brought up something a little bit ago, and this is a subject you wanted to get into in this episode. So
you're pointing the finger now.
Well, just saying,
yes.
It was something you wanted to get into. I am not doing this to, I'm not bringing this up for like my ego in any way. This is something you wanted to discuss.
Yeah.
And this is essentially, or a part of this is around so I always say I am Dr. Brian Sovryn.
Which you are.
Which I am. In fact, if we look to the right, there's my Doctorate of Divinity from the Universal Life Church. Okay? It says Brian Sovryn on it. So I'm being accurate when I say Dr. Brian Sovryn.
And that's legally your title.
Yes. And it is legally. It is legally, at least in the United States, federally, it is recognized that I am Dr. Brian Sovryn, or I am Brian Sovryn DD. And that was on the 1st of February 2015 that I got this. And so in my entire run of Sovereign Tech, I did not have this Doctorate of Divinity because the show started in 2012. But for a good chunk of it, I've had it and I've used it. I've never, I've always made it, or I feel I've always made it clear what the Doctorate of Divinity was and everything around it. And most, my audience skews heavily libertarian/anarchist. And most libertarians, at least, have a very good idea of what the Universal Life Church is. Like, they know that story because the guy that founded it, incredibly libertarian. And anyway, I don't, so I want to bring that up. I'm saying all that. You want to talk about it. Do you have a way that you want to start this off, or do you want me to keep going?
Yeah. So, I was thinking about this because recently I lost a friend, and I won't say this was the entire reason, but definitely it was the beginning of the end, was that he, I told him about your Doctor of Divinity. He probably Googled it and looked at an article for 2 seconds and then decided that you were a liar.
Right.
And that I was a liar. But the fact of the matter is that this is a real thing. Yeah. And, again, you're not lying to anyone about this. You've talked about it plenty of times over the years. And
everyone, it's always been made fairly clear, what my purpose was behind it. I've had plenty of people complain, including yourself. They've done so, I would say, lovingly, even though they may be annoyed. Because I've had the great privilege of being around incredibly intelligent people in my life.
Yeah, you actually lived with a doctorate.
Yes.
Someone who studied to get their doctorate of biochemistry.
Yeah.
Which is a hard science.
Right.
I also spent 6 years in college. You know, I worked really hard to get those 2 degrees that I have. And the first one, I was on the dean's list. The school was writing articles about me because I was the pioneer for their discovery program. I was so into it. And, I even single person, no family support. It was so important to me to get these degrees. I did whatever it took.
Yes.
To get it.
Yes.
And I care a lot about those degrees because they ensure for me a certain amount of livelihood, anywhere I go, I can be useful. I have skills that I can apply. People will pay for them. I never have to worry about being employed.
Yeah, you have the titles and papers to verify all of that. You've earned them. And
yes.
You've spent years and years and years.
And plenty of debt. Yeah,
and on a relationship standpoint, this is important to me because, not that anything's ever going to happen to me, but I want to know that you can survive on your own. I actually can't really fall in love, really in love with somebody unless they are capable of taking care of themselves. That's
I'm the same way.
Right. That's something that's very important to me. Now, if I'm in a relationship with somebody for years and something tragic happens and they can't take care of themselves or something like that, I'm sticking by my mate.
You're the most understanding, caring, empathetic person. I know you would.
Yeah, thank you. And I know you'd be the same way. So
yes.
I don't want to confuse that, okay? Or make it sound like I'm heartless or something, because it's not that. I'm just saying, at the onset, I don't want there to be that kind of power exchange or that kind of power dynamic,
Yeah.
Right.
I
want to be with someone that is, mind, body, and equal, and even beyond that, in a way. And so it was very important to me, that you had that you were able to do this, and that, because to my mind, what that does is it's your dream, and that's most important to me, but also it ensures your survival in the world that we live in. That's very important. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're bringing that up, and like you said, I've been with PhDs. I've been surrounded by people who are doing some of the most important and incredible research on the planet, and they have considered me friends, and and these are people who have held me and I've held them at incredible levels of trust. They all knew what I was doing. They were fully aware. These are people who blood, sweat, and tears, sleepless nights, crying, like going to Dartmouth and whatever other incredible institutions, dealing with whatever lab situations that they had to deal with, all that stuff, knew exactly what I was doing when I got my Doctorate of Divinity. And at times would lovingly chide and say, like, I can't believe it. I spent, 8 years, or I spent whatever amount of time, to get my PhD, and you go online and you get your Doctorate of Divinity, in no time. And it would kind of, because I flaunt it, right? Because I say I'm Dr. Brian Sovryn.
You do, yep.
Yeah, so I flaunt it. And
it's your right to do so, though.
Sure. Is it the same thing? Is my Doctorate of Divinity the same thing at the same level of what other people did to earn their PhDs and everything else? Absolutely not. Like, not really. Like getting that piece of paper, and we'll talk more about that piece of paper. I didn't, in ways I've put in that work. Okay. Like a Doctorate of Divinity is a theological, a title.
Yeah.
Okay?
So for anything that's in the hard sciences, you actually have to go to a university, an educational institution,
right,
and study and go through their hoops,
right,
in order to get the degree.
Right.
But for something that's like personal, like arts, something creative,
mm-hmm,
something that's spiritual or mystical, like
mm-hmm,
there's no, you don't need to go to university to learn these things.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's all subjective. And
it's phenomenological. A lot
like
of it.
There might
Yeah.
be techniques to arts that you have to learn that
mm-hmm,
might be like pseudoscientific or whatever.
Sure.
But none of that's real. It's
Yeah.
all just, it's... And anyway, what I'm trying to say is that what you got your doctorate for,
yeah,
your Doctor of Divinity,
yeah,
that's something that's incredibly personal. That's something that is a passion project. It's not so much... It's for the title alone.
Yeah.
It's not for making more money. It's
Yeah.
not for improving your career.
Well, yeah, exactly. Now let me add on that, and this includes you, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, and I want to speak for you. But all of those people, PhDs or otherwise, professionals in medicine, people that normally get, these high titles due to, collegiate actions, whatever. All of them said, "Oh yeah, like, okay, you didn't go to university, but you know religion better than anybody alive, or you know this stuff, like so fucking well. You absolutely deserve that." Like, people like joked that they had to go through years to achieve this thing, but at the same time, those same people were like, "Yeah, but you have the knowledge. It's not like you just didn't go to school,
Yeah.
But it's
yeah.
not like you don't know. You know better than anyone, or as well as anyone, I should say."
Well, I think so. Part of why I wanted to bring this up,
Yeah.
the person that I mentioned, the ex-friend,
Yeah.
they said that it was insulting to people who had real doctorates.
Wow, we're going deep cuts, all right.
Well, I just want to address this
Yeah, sure.
because I don't want other people to
Get confused.
Yeah, get confused. Proceed on the mistaken impression that the only way that you can get a Doctor of Divinity is by going to school or doing some astronomical feats for the church.
Right.
Like, you don't have to do that. To get the title, all you have to do legally is to buy it.
Yeah. Well, yes.
And you can talk more about that process if you want to.
Sure.
I'm just saying that this is a totally legitimate thing.
Yeah.
And it might upset some people because, you're attacking their precious institutions or whatever. But the people that you've spent your life around over the last 10 years, they're, more libertarian, anarchist types. They probably don't care as much.
No, they don't.
Because, like, people who come from that sphere understand these institutions are going to do whatever they can to convince you that they have it, they have the supreme hold on all of knowledge in the world, and they
Right.
can grant to you titles, and they can tell you if you're good enough. But that's, people who are in the know, they know that education is a personal responsibility, and it doesn't matter what your title is.
Yeah, well, I mean, Isaac Asimov, I think, said it best when he said the only real education is self-education, and we need to break into this. We need to talk about this, and I'm glad you're bringing it up. And this is good because we can reference it to people and say, well, this is the reality of the situation or whatever, again, so there isn't confusion. part of the reason I got this, so there are a few reasons that I went for this. Okay. One of them was literally to make fun of the institutions. Like I did this to make mockery because, like...
Well, they're the ones that allow it to exist.
Right.
But they're also the same institutions that will charge you an arm and a leg and put you in debt for 20 years of your life.
Exactly.
So that you can get the same title.
Right.
Or a slightly different one.
Right. Yeah. So, I wanted to make fun of those institutions, which those same PhDs that I referenced know that their institutions are a joke too.
Oh, yeah.
Like they really do.
Oh, my gosh. The institutions that I went to, I felt like I was getting robbed. I mean, like,
yeah.
I had some great professors. They wanted me to succeed. They were very caring and so knowledgeable. Incredible people. Best people that I've probably ever, touched. My life has been touched by them.
Right.
But at the same time, the institution just gouges people.
Yeah.
And it's so unreasonable.
Yeah, yeah. And honestly, like the joke that these institutions are, look, science and medicine are absolutely like they're real. And predictive results that come out of the scientific method and a lot of these are real.
Yes.
I'm not arguing against that. However, the institutions, as in like even the literal buildings or organizations or whatever else for science and medicine, have frankly become tyrannical. Especially in the past couple of years. Like every time you go on social media, it says, oh, apparently this horse medicine you can take or whatever is bullshit because of a fact checker. Now they might be right. I'm not going to argue for horse medicines. Okay. But who the fuck are these fact checkers? Like, and science and medicine has become like just an arm of the state now. Like the institutions thereof, the processes, the methods, experimentation, all that, totally legit, totally real, and I support it, and it's a wonderful and beautiful thing, and we've been able to advance the species in many ways because of it. It's not to say there aren't more other avenues we need to go, but that's part of it, and that's great.
Oh, yeah, and one of my biggest challenges in finding a job was finding one that didn't serve the state in some way, or the military.
Right. Almost impossible for a PhD to find work that isn't connected to the state. Actually, everything's kind of connected in one way, but it's like levels of egregiousness.
Yeah, like if you are doing postgraduate studies or something, like that's all funded publicly.
Yeah, so to some degree, I wanted to make fun of these institutions. The other thing I wanted to make fun of was, at the time I was on Free Talk Live still, and when I would talk about theological matters, when people would call in and say, blah, 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 you don't know what you're talking about, I wanted to be able to say, actually, jackass, I have a doctorate of divinity. Do you? And, and just to hear that freeze, that silence on the phone where the person go, wait, what? Somebody who's saying there is no God has a doctorate of divinity. Now, granted, yes, anybody can go online and pay $30 for a doctorate of divinity from the Universal Life Church. There are actually multiple Universal Life churches. Some of them have you go by the letter of the law, which means you do have to complete some kind of course. There are others where you can just fucking buy it. Okay.
Which one did you choose?
I actually went through the one that required the course. So, it was a test. It was like 100 questions, and could somebody Google them? Yeah, I suppose. But they actually, they do a timed thing. I mean, there was a process here. And some of those questions, I got to admit, I didn't get 100. It was close, but I didn't get 100. Because some of those were really fucking hard. Okay, I'm not entirely up on the Baha'i faith as much as I do know about it. I've had friends who are Baha'i, so I have, and fortunately Baha'i is actually very similar to Seventh-day Adventism minus the extra prophets, though Adventism has their own prophets, but anyway. So, I went through that. And, so I want to be, clear that that's there. Okay. So it's, depending upon how you go about it, it can be as simple as buying one. It may not be. But again, I knew, and the people who I worked with who were fine with me, doing this whole process. And believe me, there are people who could have stopped me. If they said, don't do it, Brian, I wouldn't have done it. Okay. So it's not like I was dead set on this and going rogue or something along those lines. But sure, if someone now wanted to call me on the carpet of where I got my doctorate of divinity, it's up to them to choose whether or not they want to accept that, or whatever. But I was doing it, or one of the reasons I was doing it was for the shock value and the entertainment value of just slamming somebody with this piece of paper. You know what I mean? Even though it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't even mean anything to me. In fact, doubly, a Doctorate of Divinity should mean nothing to an actual person, who gives a shit about theology, because, especially if like you're a Christian or something, what's the New Testament say? Don't put any faith in what moth and rust destroy. Moth and rust destroy, or moths at least will destroy that paper. So like, you're not supposed to give a shit about anything in this world. So I'm also in a very meta way insulting them because they're giving a shit about my Doctorate of Divinity that ultimately I don't even give a shit about. Despite any like mysticism and esoteric concepts that I hold, and I hold many, this doesn't really mean anything to me. It is completely about, it's a showpiece. It's completely about, or it's not completely, but part of it is about entertainment. The other part, the third reason and there are others. The third reason is I had planned, still do, to write a book about Prisca Theologia, about the original, quote unquote religion. And I wanted that to say Dr. Brian Sovryn on the cover of that book. And this was the way to do it, Now, people can choose whether or not the things that I say, I like to think I bring a lot of evidence, I bring a lot of background, I bring a lot of, evidence is the word. I bring everything that scholarly research should bring to a situation. Okay. You can choose whether or not you agree with people can choose whether or not they agree with my conclusions. Okay. That piece of paper means nothing to those conclusions, and it shouldn't matter. That's in many ways the whole point, is that the knowledge is objective. Okay, interpretations can sometimes be subjective, but like what's being brought to bear is incredibly objective, talked about by other people, referencing other people who have titles and whatever else. If the information's good, who gives a shit what title is in front or at the end of somebody's name?
Yeah, I agree.
Right. So, but at the same time, the world we live in, like, you kind of have to do it. It's almost for like marketing purposes. And I'm not saying I agree with it, but again, that's me making a mockery of the whole damn thing. At the same time, like, do I deserve that? In my opinion, do I deserve a Doctorate of Divinity? Absolutely. And I'll put my theological knowledge of many religions against just about anybody on the planet. Like, I'm that confident, in doing that. And you can say that that's me boasting, whatever, fine. That's for you to, you test me and you decide. But I've also got 10 years of a show where people like almost, in all of the hate mail I've ever gotten, it's almost never disagreeing with my theological points because they know, I'm guessing, they know I'm right. Or at the very least, my interpretation is one interpretation. So anyway, to explain where all of this comes from, this is where I'm coming from. What more do you have? I feel like I'm kind of either derailing or going in places maybe you didn't intend.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I'm glad that you said so much about it. Mm-hmm. And as much as you say the piece of paper, the title doesn't mean anything to you, mm-hmm. I still think it's significant, symbolic of your passion, of
sure.
what you have spent your whole life studying.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you didn't go to college, you didn't get this honorary degree
right.
bestowed upon you from some religious institution,
mm-hmm.
but you still deserve it. And like, the point is, it's not fake.
Right.
Even if it's, just a bullshit piece of paper, it doesn't
mm-hmm.
mean anything. It's still, like, legally, you're a Doctor of Divinity.
Yeah, you've researched this. You're not just taking my word for it. You've looked into it recently because you felt compelled to do so.
Yeah, well, I also saw an article recently. Taylor Swift is going to be a doctor.
This is nuts.
Which, like, what the fuck?
But a Doctor of Arts, right?
Yeah,
like it's something like that.
She's being bestowed the honorary Doctor of Arts from
right.
NYU or whatever.
Right.
And, like, I'm not a fan of her music. I don't care about her at all.
Yeah.
Like, I'm good for her. She wants
yeah.
that title, go for it.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't think she deserves it.
Yeah.
But if, I don't think anybody deserves honorary degrees, really, if we're going to go that distance.
Yeah, sure.
Like, you know, but that's coming from a person who went to school for 6 years for hard sciences.
Right.
So anyway, like, I'm just saying, if you want an honorary degree, go for it. You know,
Yeah.
If it's going to help you in some way, if it makes you feel better about yourself, if
Sure.
you think it's going to, you know, make you stand out somehow, please go for it. I don't judge anyone for that.
Yeah.
Like, get whatever titles you can. Heck, I even boast sometimes about the fact that I got a certificate from Harvard. But you know what? I just took a course online.
Yeah, you're right. Well, but see...
But I went to Harvard.
Yeah, see, but that's a great example. That's a great example, because here's the thing. So, like, college, part of the joke that is college is really...
Oh, it's so much about reputation.
Oh, yeah, but, like you can take all these courses on the most incredible things. Like, MIT has open source classrooms,
Yeah,
right? Where
yeah.
you can go there, and you learn better than anyone. Even in, like, Silicon Valley, not just in Silicon Valley, in a lot of different market sectors, you hear everybody saying now, getting a degree is not going to get you the job. What you need to do is actually do shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you need to, if you need to write a program that impresses the fuck out of people. That's going to get you ahead more so than any title you have. Google stopped paying attention to, I mean, fuck Google, but Google stopped paying attention to, like, your credentials years ago. You know, like, they want to hire the people that have done shit. That's what gets you ahead. And that's the thing. You know, like these titles and all this stuff, like the system is breaking as it is. But,
Yeah.
like, it's recognizing, yeah, these things mean nothing.
Oh God, even at my last job, you know, they had this requirement for so long. People had to have a bachelor's degree to
Right.
get in. But you know how much of your bachelor's degree you use when you get into that position?
Oh, yeah.
Fucking 2%.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
almost nothing. And
Yeah.
at this point, with the labor shortage as it is, they don't care. They're hiring
Right.
anyone.
Right.
So I don't think it really even, like, again, like you were saying, to your point, education doesn't matter as much as just being there, being present, being intelligent, and being hardworking.
Yeah, being passionate.
Yeah.
You know, about whatever's going on. Like, that's always what's going to put people ahead, is the passion, not the piece of paper. I mean, we also live in a World War II, you know, you know, to get a job. Like, nepotism's kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But, you know, just full disclosure, I guess. Yeah. So, I mean, this document, this piece of paper that I have here on the wall, yes, it is officially recognized by the federal government in the United States. Okay, that person has a Doctorate of Divinity. What does that confer upon anyone? Not much. You know, like...
Nothing, really.
Yeah. You know, again, the only thing that it can really work on is it can play to some degree with the minds of people. I mean, it can stroke your own ego if you want it to, you know, or it just plays with the minds of people who still buy into the old system, you know. I mean, but it's the same people who think that, and this is something we've talked about a lot over the past couple of years, and I know this because the industry that my 9-to-5 industry, I know this better than anyone. There's people who still think a piece in Forbes means anything. It means nothing. Like, people can pay in, just like I do for my Doctorate of Divinity, people can pay in to be a contributor for Forbes.
Yep.
You do not have to have a journalistic class. All you got to do is pay the fee. You know, or whatever. Like, there might be a couple metrics you have to meet, but anybody can fucking write a Forbes piece today. And the entire media industry is reliant upon, or the entire news industry is reliant upon past glories. It's reliant upon past reputations that mean nothing now. You know, like, the only newspapers on the planet that maybe still, or not newspapers, news organizations that might still matter and like that have, like, where they actually do, like, independent research and they do all these other things, might be the New York Times and the Washington Post, or not even the Washington Post, maybe like the Wall Street Journal. Like, they're like the last two left. Everybody else is giving into the ad industry. Everybody else is, like, completely falling apart. And I think even the New York Times is fucking propaganda and agenda based. You know, Wall Street Journal, not much better. But that's part of the reason, you know, when we were talking about what you wanted to do while you're off contract, you want to do the newsletter. And that's because someone's got to fucking bring some actual research, independent thought, and truth, because the news industry's not doing it, you know? And so that it's the same deal. where like the only things that this kind of shit matters to, or the only people this kind of shit matters to, like these papers and everything else, are people who are stuck in the legacy system, who are stuck 20 years in the past or 30 years in the past, you know, thinking that, oh, well, this means this means that, when no, none of it means shit. If Taylor Swift is getting a doctorate, nothing means anything. You know, like, it's all a ruse. It's all a sham. You know, like, I don't know. It's such a great example for you to bring up, because it just shows, you know, like, yeah, like you said, if you can go for it, go for it. But she doesn't deserve shit. She hasn't written her own music in fucking 15 years. Like I don't understand. You know, she has great people working underneath her, but that's what she has. That doesn't mean she's great. Anyway.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah, I mean, I knew you were trouble when you walked in, but anyway, I mean, you know, what more do you have on this? Like, this is an important subject, you know, to get out there, because people have got to realize, like, just everything's fraud and rigged.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I love science. I love self-education.
Yeah.
If I could have gotten these degrees somehow without going through an institution, I totally would have. Because then I wouldn't be shacked up with like 10 years of debt.
Right.
And I wouldn't have had to spend 6 years of heartbreaking, backbreaking labor.
Right.
To make that happen.
Right. I mean, and for a lot of these things, you know, in fact, we talked about this. We were, if you don't mind me saying this, we were hanging out with your uncle. Mm-hmm. Great guy. I like this guy a lot.
He's a character.
He is a character. And actually, he's it takes someone special to bring something to me and it really expands my worldview. Like, you know, like explosion. And he's the kind of guy that can do that. Like, two of the most important books I think ever written came from him. I did not know about them until he told me about them, and they're brilliant. Virus of the Mind is one of them. The other we've talked about in other places. Anyway, we were.
You don't want to mention it?
Well, we can, but we don't have to do that here. We did recently on Patreon content, so go sign up, folks. But we were talking, you know, and he's like, I forget, we were talking about college and like what does it take for people, you know, talking about like self-directed learning and a lot of these other things. Mm-hmm. And I said to him, he's like, so how do we solve this? How do we solve the problem with colleges? And this is years ago that we were visiting, a year or two, you know.
Yeah, it was like 2 Christmases ago. Yeah,
it's pre-2020. And I said to him, I was like, well, here's the thing. Like, the information is out there. Like, you can go, again, MIT, you know, open source classes, or Harvard, like you did, Ellen, or, you know, whatever.
Or you can just order the textbooks for all of these courses online.
Exactly. Okay, so self-directed learning can get you such and so far. All you really need, you don't actually need universities. All you really need are labs where people can go and use the equipment. That's what's prohibitively expensive.
The lab equipment,
right. Yeah. And that's effectively all a tuition should really be paying for. All right. So no, like, colleges should not have, that's what we were talking about. It's like how crazy, you know, college prices are, tuitions, like, they're insane. Okay. And I said, yeah, like, that is insane, because that's not necessary. All you need is just you need the building set up that people can walk into and use the equipment. That's what you need to, you know, to learn. And this is true for most sciences, you know, and medical, you know, matters, everything. But that's not how the system is set up right now. Actually, that's how the guild system, ironically, kind of used to be, you know, a few hundred years ago. I'm not saying we should have to go back to that, but that's interesting. And, you know, and he like, I kind of felt like he was just like, yeah, because the only way he responded to me, he says, so what are you doing to make that a reality? He didn't say you're crazy. He didn't say you're wrong. He said, what are you doing to make that a reality? You know, but that's it. It's like, this is all crap. The way everything is set up is crap. This is not how it should be, because the same person, like you said, can go out and buy their own textbooks or can take the classes. Look, part of it taking 8 years, that's a sham too, because I know people who can learn fucking Python or whatever in a day, and they'll sit there for 12 hours and go through every course and pick it all up at that pace. You're actually holding people back by forcing everybody, okay, you do this class on Tuesday and every Tuesday and every Tuesday, or every Tuesday, Thursday, or whatever. What if somebody wants to just go through the process, learn it all in a week or 1 year, you know, and wants to go balls to the wall? We don't have the system set up for that. And so it's fucking everybody. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, the self-paced learning is really important too. Like, if I had the choice, I would have spent more time, like, less time on the earlier parts of my education and more time on the later parts.
Right.
Because once you get into the really specialized knowledge, it starts to go by way too fast.
Yes.
And there's some intense mathematical stuff that I was studying that I could have used a few extra weeks on.
Yeah, sure. Right. So I mean, so there's that problem too, because everybody kind of learns differently.
Yeah.
And there are aspects where you want to concentrate on, but the way the system's set up, you've got to catch up with everybody. Everybody's got to move at the same pace. That's antithetical to growth. That's antithetical to learning. That's antithetical to, the whole process and ending up with the best results, So it's all crap, and if, let's see, when I got this, I was 34, when I got this doctorate of divinity. And and hey, I've gotten pissed off too. I've actually said this on Sovereign Tech. The internet makes research so fucking easy. I used to have to, a lot of the stuff I talk about on Sovereign Tech comes from the hard labor of actually going to sites, and I don't mean websites, I mean sites, places, other countries, whatever. I have to go to those places. I have to go to multiple libraries. I have to read books. Big books. I have to go through so much. Now, you can watch a YouTube video in 40 minutes that covers 4 years of what I had to go through, to learn things, just because of the slow process that it took at the time, because there wasn't any way to do it faster, but at 34, do I feel like I earned that? I put in the hard time. I put in the hard research, and all of that stuff. But again, at the same time, I can say, on that level, it's all a joke. It's all ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, you've told me stories about how, when you were younger, you used to go to these science conventions or science fiction conventions, and you'd talk to these famous authors about the books that they had written.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Well, not even just science fiction. See, that's another thing, too. There are so many people, the amount of quote-unquote citizen scientists or citizen archaeologists or whatever, people who, come up with the most incredible discoveries, deserve every fucking accolade that their respective ology, can give them. In fact, I would argue some of the best work has not come from people who spent 8 years at university. And I mean, here's a guy. Speaking of Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious Universe, while we were watching that episode about the pyramids, and they had Robert Bivall on. Now, Robert Bivall is an engineer. Okay, that gives him some credence, sure, I guess, in the popular world, certainly in 1995 when that show came out. Robert Bivall, came up with this whole theory of the pyramids being aligned, with Orion's belt and all that. And some people have issues with this, but a lot of people actually in mainstream archaeology accept it.
There's a lot of evidence for it.
Yeah, there's a lot of good evidence. There's, some damning stuff against it, you can say, certainly, and I know that. But anyway, Robert Bivall, you can read the guy, he doesn't have any actual credentials in archaeology or Egyptology. But his work is phenomenal. And read his books on a lot of these matters, and he's bringing the evidence. He's bringing everything you need to come to that conclusion, with not a lot of speculation. And what, I'm supposed to ignore him because he's not a board-recognized Egyptologist? Absolutely not. I was friends with Zachariah Sitchin. Zachariah Sitchin, and there's plenty of points where, boy, he was wrong. Okay, but I could point at a million archaeologists where they've all been proven wrong a million times over. Who cares, right? Nobody wants to discredit them or anything. They're just fuck, I'm wrong, and they move on. Sitchin, same deal, okay? But because some of the things he says people consider crazy, when he's wrong, it's, for some reason, it has more weight. I don't know why. But you read The 12th Planet, it doesn't matter what his credentials was. That is a tour de force of archaeological evidence that I can barely think of the archaeological text that comes close, to what he lays out. You know, a lot of, especially with archaeology, a lot of archaeology now, a lot of archaeological like papers and everything are just, they get printed in like Biblical Archaeology Review, and it's about, you know, maybe at best you'll get 2 pages, you know, out of the matter, and then it's considered, okay, this is accepted by the archaeological community or something like that. These guys, Robert Bivall, you know, Zachariah Sitchin, Ahmed Osman, go down the list, they're writing entire books, multiple volumes, 500-page, you know, like, and they're not fiction. Some are, but they're not. Most of them are not. And they're bringing everything to you. They're bringing all this collated data together, you know, for you. But because they're not recognized by the, you know, Egyptology Council, whatever that fucking is, you know, then you shouldn't pay attention. Then they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Give me a goddamn break. Should they get an honorary degree? Absolutely. You know, like, in fact, to give them the degrees that you strip away from all the archaeologists that peddle bullshit all day long that they prove wrong, you know, in their 500-page opuses. So, yeah, I've been, you know, and I've been around these people who've done tremendous research. I've been around, you know, a lot of people who've done, you know, amazing research, and I've gleaned like a lot of personal stuff from them and everything. Yeah, I think this idea that like we only respect people based upon, you know, certain criteria is kind of nuts. I don't know if that's the reason you brought that up, but I went down that road.
Yes. Yeah.
It is. Okay.
It's partly about the institutions, partly about the title.
Yeah.
Meaning nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, yeah. What else do you have on this?
No, I think you covered it really well.
Yeah.
Thank you for talking so brazenly about that.
Sure. But I mean, how do you feel about it? You know, I know this is getting like this kind of inside baseball. Like we're talking about some kind of personal stuff. You know, I'm kind of used to it. I've encountered it, you know, a million times because I'm a weird guy, right? And I'm sort of used to like that people just aren't gonna get it. You know, they're not gonna get me. And there's like a kind of a more surface level me that I have to have, you know, to interact with the normies, you know.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Like, I've never really been able to have close friends because I am such a weird person.
You're a fucking weirdo.
Yeah, I'm a total freak.
You are a freak.
And, woo.
Yeah. Woo.
Yeah, so I've definitely, you know, had and lost plenty of friends throughout my life for, you know, holding some very strong and very non-conformist views.
Yeah.
And I think you and I are similar in that way.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to blame you for the fact that I lost a friend over this. Like,
right.
It's not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. You're just being who you are, and you're being true to yourself. And you're certainly not lying about anything. If anything, I think you're being more honest than most people are, and that's what scares people. That's what freaks them out.
Sure.
Is that you've had some life experiences, you've done things in your past that are outstanding. In some ways, they're terrifying. In some ways, they're amazing. And I just don't think the average person is capable of handling you. Or me, for that matter.
No, they can't handle you. They can't handle you. Not like you you know. Like,
yeah.
no way.
No, because, like, we're so... I talk to people and I feel so complicated, and I don't even know how to convey that. Because, like, you know, on the one hand, I can understand where people are coming from when they say, like, oh, this is bullshit. Yeah, okay, it is.
Right.
But it's also not.
Yeah, it's not.
For a lot of reasons.
Right. But then also everything's bullshit.
but
yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
There's just so many layers to this.
Yes.
And I think it takes a special mind to completely grasp that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just too shocking for most people to come to that realization that, like, oh, you know, my whole worldview, you know, for this however long I've believed it is actually wrong.
Yeah. Well, you know, I want to empathize a bit with people, because, you know, you got to be ready to hear certain things. Like, there is a timing, you know,
yes, yeah.
like for when things work. Now, I like to think I've gotten really good at that timing. I've learned when I can say certain things to people and when I can't. How to put this? like even me, I can remember, when I became more of a libertarian, right? And I'm coming out of the military. I'm coming out of, like all these things, like I wasn't an anarchist yet, and I remember when it hit me. And I've told the story a billion times, so I don't need to repeat it a lot. But basically, I heard somebody on the news, on Fox News, say, it was Judge Andrew Napolitano, for those that care, say, he was asking a question about, okay, in an anarchist society, what do we do about a navy? And he just responded and said, well, who says you need a navy?
Yeah.
And I was floored. Like, I just, like, I almost, like, I think I might have physically dropped to my knees hearing that. Like, holy shit, right. And it's such a simple statement. And I think you and I, or a lot of people who are listening to this, think that what we think are such simple statements and they're such simple truths. Okay? But for people, even very intelligent people, PhDs, whatever, like this could be shocking or shattering.
There was a time where like you and I both heard something like that for the first time and it changed our world forever.
Do you remember what that was? You don't have to like...
For me? Oh, yeah. Well, I guess it was probably shortly after I moved to New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And I was hanging out in one of the clubhouses in Keene, where everybody went after doing the Free Talk Live.
Right.
And I remember, like, having a conversation with someone and asking all of these questions, like, so what do you do about this? What do you do about that? What do who's going to build the roads? Stupid things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And she just said, like, I don't have all the answers, but I do know that people can figure it out for themselves. And I was like,
boom.
What? What? Oh my God, you're right. Actually, that's exactly how I feel. And nobody had put it to words to me like that.
And how did
before.
you react? Like, I know you react with shock and like, wow. But what did you integrated it, I assume. Yeah,
I did. And that was the moment that I became an anarchist.
Okay. So, right. So there you go. So
I went from libertarian, what is it, like minarchist to
anarchist.
Yeah.
But like going to anarchism only took like 2 seconds. You just had to hear the statement.
I just had to hear the right words at the right time.
Yes. So so this is important. I'm glad you brought that up. Okay. So first off, you needed to have the person in your life that had the courage to say those sorts of things.
Yes.
That's what you're saying. I have, right? And you have it too. But but that's what you were just talking about, saying like people can't handle what you're saying. Okay. Yeah. Because I have the courage to say it. People can't handle. Now, here's the thing, is that I can have the courage to say it all day long, whatever. But what matters isn't that I have the courage. What matters is, does the person have the courage to integrate it? Does the person have the courage to accept it and to run with it when they hear it? I don't mind that people don't know the things that I know. Okay? That's okay. I don't hold that against people for not knowing what I know. How could I? Or at least in my opinion, I don't think I could. But I can hold against, or I can have concerns around how a person reacts to that knowledge, what they do with that knowledge when they do get it. And that's to use a biblical phrase, that's the wheat from the chaff. Okay, is who can hear it and run with it, integrate it and run with it and say, aha, who can have the courage to accept what they just heard? And who doesn't? Who's going to be the hedgehog that buries their head in the sand?
Yeah.
And that's the difference. Okay, now, granted, even the most ardent hedgehog, not named Sonic, in time can, because not every hedgehog is as fast as Sonic, in time can accept, can build up that courage and can accept powerful statements, courageous statements. But I want to empathize. Like, I can empathize that someone doesn't know. What I have a harder time empathizing with, even though I can understand that it might not be their time or they're just always going to be a hedgehog, is, what they can do, what they do when they hear it, and like if you're not going to dig it, okay, don't dig it. Then it's not for you, and that's okay. But like, I know there are things that I hear people say that aren't for me, and I can walk away from that, unless it's something that's going to attack me, or like it has to, like it's threatening my life somehow. But very few statements, I think, actually threaten my life.
But if you hear something that you don't agree with, you don't attack that person for saying something like that. Yeah,
as long as it's not something that, again, that like that's attacking me or that's threatening me. Like, of course.
I think that's something that also, like, it takes a special person to hear something that they don't agree with and also hold that in concert with all the other things that they do. And, you know, see a person as a whole, a mixed bag, you know, things that you like and things that you don't like, and still be okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, but you know, and I think you're right, and I think the ingredient is you've got to be comfortable in your own skin, and most people are not.
Yeah.
Okay, you've got to be able, and this is such a funny thing, like, that's the real sense of power. Okay, like, and people will react. You have to understand, when you are comfortable in your own skin, and when you have a well set compass, as it were, okay, personal compass. The irony is, like, so you have an inner peace and an inner power at that point. You have real power at that point, actually, because you know who you are, and you're okay with that.
Absolutely.
Right. The irony is that terrifies people.
Oh yeah, when they find out that you don't need them.
Yes. And the sad part is, the end game of a lot of that fear comes down to, ironically, the use of a false sense of power. And that false sense of power is either the law, which is ultimately the gun, you know, or it's ostracism, you know, it's like, or it's all there's all these kinds of tools that are actually false power. You know, like, people don't realize it. Like, a gun is false power. Yeah,
because you kick that gun out of someone's hand, and then what?
Sure.
They're going to be terrified. Like, oh, their protection is gone.
Right. It's absolutely a false sense of power. And so many of these, like, extrinsic or external tools that are thought of as power are actually a false sense of power. Like, a government is a false sense of power. It's a false power, right? Because a government is a fiction that people have to accept, you know, for it to even have its power.
Exactly. Yeah.
You, the individual, are not a fiction. And when you are comfortable with yourself, when you know yourself, when you accept yourself, and you recognize and you work on yourself, and, you know, and you have, again, that intrinsic motivation and that intrinsic ability and that intrinsic power, you are the only real power in the universe. You know, well, I mean, there's gravity, and there might be some other things, but you get my point. Is, you know, like, it's just ironic that scares people, and it scares people into using false tools of power. As far as where I'm going with that, I'm not entirely sure, but it needs to be said, because that's ultimately what worries me. You know, is, again, people who, like, they're terrified of people who actually have real power, and it's such a nasty game, and it just, again, it's more of that calling bullshit on everything, and I don't want to keep going down this road because it leads to insulting places where I don't need to insult people or whatever. But that's at the core, I think, of where these kinds of situations, like you were talking about, what brought this whole thing up, kind of happens. Is, oh boy, like, I am not so comfortable in my beliefs. I'm not so comfortable in who I am. I am not so comfortable in blah, blah, blah. And I don't mean to project on anybody. I'm just saying in general, that's how this happens. Because that's the flip side of it. Nobody can really know what the other person, you know, is going through or thinking or all that stuff. And so I want to be empathetic towards that too. Anyway, do you have anything you want to respond to any of that? Because I've just been running my mouth and we're over 2 hours.
No, I think what you said is great. I don't know that I have anything to add right now.
Okay.
Especially considering it's getting late.
It is getting late, yes. And we wanted to talk about a movie.
Oh, yeah, we did.
But,
okay, all right.
But you know what? Do you want to make it homework for people?
Let's just do the one movie. We don't have to do the whole list.
All right, we'll just do the one movie. Did you get out everything you wanted to say? I feel like I talked way too much there.
Yeah, I think we covered it. Broad spectrum. It's very good.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Because I love having you on, and you have such tremendous insights. You are someone that has that, like, real power.
Thank you.
And I gladly give into it.
Well, I'm just grateful that you recognize it.
Yeah.
And that you bow to my commands.
Well, I don't think most people can handle yours. I mean, yeah. Oh. Now, wait a minute, Slade. No. Excuse me. I think we might have some things confused here. No.
Wait. I was playing Skyrim last night.
Yeah.
Talking to one of the characters, and he said, when Maven tells you to do something, you better listen to exactly what she says and do it the way she tells you to. And I turned to you and said, I can't wait until people talk about me like that.
Here's the thing, like we're not all right.
I'm really not power crazy.
No. I want to say this, okay? And I've brought this up to you many times, but there have been many other cases where this has happened. All right, because I don't want people to think we're like, blowing smoke up each other's asses or something here. Okay.
Oh yeah,
this is important.
Sniffing our own farts.
Yeah, we're sniffing our own farts, right? Like other people without you in the room have said at events, even like on public recordings, shall we say, whatever those happen to be, about you, like they have recognized this person operates, meaning you, Ellen, on another level. And the people you were presently around, like they're saying, oh yeah, like she's going to be gone, guys. Like she's going to be out of here because like my point is they're recognizing your power. They were recognizing, your internal power, whether they put it in those terms or not. Okay. They saw it and they knew that your present situation was not where you were meant to be or where you would end up.
I was destined for greater things.
Yes, sure. And so.
And that doesn't take away from anyone else.
No.
Like, I think everyone can be empowered that way.
Yeah. And see, and again, one of the biggest things that people just don't grok is not every opportunity is for you. Like we live in a society where everybody's so fucking jealous of fucking everything else. We're like, oh, I should have $1 million, or I should have this, or I should have that, or oh, gee, I could have thought of broadcast.com and sold it for 40 million or something like that, whatever. Okay, not every opportunity is for you. There's, and that's all right. I don't know
just
why.
Be the best version of you that you can be.
Right. Just not every opportunity is for you. Not every person is for you. Not every relationship is for you. Not everything is, like. The other phrase I love from Captain Picard is, a person can do everything right and still lose.
Yes. Yeah.
Holy shit. And I've had people argue with me over that phrase, but I think that's absolutely true. Just accept, okay, that opportunity wasn't for me. Life is not a zero-sum game. Just because somebody won and you technically lost actually doesn't mean you lost. That just wasn't your opportunity. Anyway, but you've got to have that personal power to seize the opportunity when it does come. So we'll leave that at that. We had the opportunity to watch the privilege to watch. I picked this movie up on disc because, believe it or not, good luck finding this on the torrent sites. This is becoming a reality more and more today, where like I find it a challenge to find movies on torrent sites often enough, certainly in good quality or with the proper subtitles as needed. So I picked up a disc of one of my hero, Harlan Ellison's, one of his favorite movies. In fact, I've had occasion where he's told me it was his favorite film. And that movie is The Final Program from, the novel was from 1968 by Michael Moorcock, a very famous author out of Britain. But the movie itself came out in 1973. It's spelled, by the way, and I mean, I'll put the link in the show notes so you can see it, but it's Final, P-R-O-G-R-A, P-R-O-G-R-A-M-M-E. Okay, so The Final Program. We don't need to go into a huge, dissertation on the plot.
Sure.
But basically, it seems like the world is ending. It's kind of it's not like post-apocalyptic, but it's like just civilization is teetering. Like there's still fancy buildings and everything, but then there's also like piles of cars, like dumpsters and all this kind of crap like in front of those buildings. Like, so you're on the edge of civilization ending in this movie. And you have a character who is a scientist of a sort, who is experiencing this and basically dealing in his own mind with, okay, what does this mean when civilization ends? But he's the son of a father who was creating a solution for this new age coming after civilization, or the present civilization ends anyway. it's an incredibly weird movie. It is the 1970s. Much of it feels like an LSD trip.
Yes, and drugs are very readily apparent.
A prominent part of the
yeah,
movie.
in
yes.
most of the movie.
Yeah. Oh boy, I just like kind of want to ask like what do you rate this movie? But I want to talk about it more.
Yeah, well, I guess just straight up, I'd give this movie an 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10.
Yeah, it's a fabulous movie. I love it.
Low budget, clearly.
Yeah. Yep, low budget.
You know,
but that's okay. And I mean, the technology was different back then.
Right.
For them to do what they did and still make the movie feel like an LSD trip was really spectacular. And I think a lot of that had to do with the main character, just the way that he behaved. And he was so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of it is like black humor. Although the movie's not directly funny, there are some very ridiculous and silly things that happen.
Yeah, I feel like this is very much the theater of the absurd. It's science fiction, but it's the theater of the absurd, which science fiction doesn't always go there, or usually it actually doesn't go there. It's very rare, I think,
yes.
with science fiction film. Books, there's a lot of them, but film, no. And I really enjoyed that. The music was amazing. Originally, Hawkwind was the band Hawkwind, which I love, was supposed to do the music, but they got like this weird kind of like jazzy country.
At one point we were listening to, there was a long sequence and it sounded like country at first.
Yeah.
And then it went into like jazzy and then it went into jam band.
Right.
So it was like a very flowing kind of music and I loved it. I don't know what it was, but I wish we could find out.
Yeah, I mean, what was like the standout in this movie for you with the final program?
The standout?
Yeah. Was it I mean, there aren't any really big actors. I mean, Patrick McGee's in it. John Finch, who plays the lead character, Cornelius, is kind of, you know, he did some things. But like, what made this movie for you?
I think what really made it for me was that the main character was so serious, but at the same time, like, everything was okay, everything was cool. He's talking about, like, blowing up his house with napalm. He even goes and talks to an assassin while they're at an arcade about this.
So what do you plan on doing about the house? I'm thinking about napalm. You mean napalm. Yeah, napalm. That's the way he says it. It's so great.
Yeah, there's just, like, they finally go into the house, and there's all sorts of weird booby traps. Like, you get gassed if you get closed into this room, or you run into this room that's got, like, all these crazy colors. I don't understand totally what was going on. Oh, the doorknob that was actually a chess piece, and they figured it out by reading the music that was on the piano.
Yeah, exactly.
Just weird things like that. And then there's this woman who is working on the project, and she's, like, absorbing people into her vagina. You know, just...
What do you do with the bones?
Weird things.
Yeah. So, like, I guess spoiler alerts. Because, so here's part of what, and I think what made it, like, the funny, or what made it Harlan's like favorite movie, because it's just constantly subverting expectations.
Yes. Yep.
You know, and because so what the final program is, it's a computer program, and it's a computer program with human brains connected to it, of like the greatest scientists ever.
The sum of all knowledge.
Right.
Into two human brains.
Yes, to try and create the new Messiah that's going to bring on this new age. Okay? And that's what the final program is.
A super being that can self-regenerate.
Exactly. A hermaphrodite being, and they say these things expressly. You know, and that's what this is, like, all about. There's some Nazism in this that's, like, kind of not really transparent, you know, like... Anyway,
well, at one point, you know, they're standing next to an old Nazi submarine, and you can see the emblems on the wall.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's kind of obvious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they're playing with that. But here's the thing. So where you think that they're going to create the Ubermensch, let's just put it this way. That doesn't happen.
So they do. They create this hermaphrodite super being.
Yes.
But it is not at all what you would expect.
No, you're expecting like this beautiful, maybe blonde-haired, blue-eyed creature or something like that. I don't know, you know, or guy. But
it's one ugly motherfucker. And it's a tasty world out there.
It's a tasty world out there. This movie's hilarious, you know, but like I feel like the theme of the movie is very much can be found in the full phrase of the best laid plans of mice and men, you know. like that all of that just falls apart. And I love it. And
you might get what you want, but it's not what you expect.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. You know, it's yeah. So it's a movie. I mean, it's science fiction through and through. You know, granted, yes, very low budget. You know, but I think that they're clever enough with it. You have to accept it for what it is. But you can't help but walk away from it and just, I don't know, almost feel humbled. I mean, you're wondering most of the time, what the fuck is going on, you know? And then when you finally get the answers, you're like, oh, okay. And then when everything, happens, I mean, you just walk away laughing and frankly, like almost feeling good.
Yeah.
And I almost think the character of Cornelius, and I think you were saying this, and feel free to correct me, you know, is almost an aspirational character, because he's just like, all the shit's falling apart and he's just rolling with it. He's just dealing with it.
And that's why it's a feel-good movie.
Yeah.
That's why you feel good walking away from it, because it puts into perspective the ridiculousness of existence.
Aha.
And like, you know, on some level, everything is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it's all okay. It's going to be okay. You just handle it as it comes.
It actually plays, I think this plays very well with the conversation we were just having about institutions and titles and all this stuff, because the institutions and titles, here it is. Here is their perfect, the final program. This is it. We're all the sum of human knowledge. The two most perfect beings are going to come together, make love, and create this immortal, self-replicating, hermaphrodite creature, you know, the greatest thing that humanity could possibly come up with. And it ends up being effectively a Neanderthal with long nails. And
yeah, and all the scientists that were working on it died.
Right.
So
I mean, it calls bullshit on all of it, you know, and,
Yep.
and I love it. It's such a fun, and again, that's why I think Harlan like just would have loved this, because he's all about that, where like, oh, you think this is amazing and this is blah, blah, blah. And then it all just gets turned on its head, you know, and you find out you're completely wrong. And, you know, you didn't even, it's not that you didn't even have the answers. Like, you didn't even know what questions to ask.
And that's the real shame of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
We don't know. We don't have the questions.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, does Cornelius say that in this? Where he's like,
I'm not sure.
We've been watching so many movies lately.
We're just on the verge of having the questions.
Right. Yeah, it feels like I'm just on the verge of learning the questions.
Yes,
you know?
he did say that.
He did say that in this. So that really speaks to that. Yeah, I think it's a phenomenal movie. You know, the production values, whatever. You know, like, but a movie like this would never get made today. For the subject matter, it wouldn't get made today. And, like, no one would take a risk with a movie like this today. I just couldn't see it. You know, or, I mean, maybe an independent would make it, but the studio sure as fuck wouldn't put any money into something like this. And that's a pity, because these are the movies, like, this is the kind of movie that needs to get made. You know, especially today when everybody's thinking they're figuring shit out. And this, again, just turns it all on its head. What do you got?
Yeah, no, I loved it. I mean, it doesn't get perfect marks just because there's some things that, like, they could have touched on more, they could have explained more. Like,
yeah.
Like, what's going on with that woman absorbing people into her
Yeah, how did
vagina?
that work?
Yeah, you don't really get an answer.
Are you inspired to read the book?
Yeah, actually, I am.
Same. I don't imagine there's an audiobook out there, but now I'm kind of like, yeah.
Let's get a copy if we can.
Oh, well, I've already got an ebook of it, you know.
Send it to me, please.
Yeah, I will. Maybe if you have some free time, you could do an audiobook version of it.
Well, I do actually happen to have some free time.
I love it. Well, I'm with you. 8 out of 10. Like I agree that there's things I would have liked some more. Admittedly, as great as the music was, also I can't find the soundtrack anywhere. It just doesn't seem to exist.
God, I wish we could, because that was some good listening music.
Yeah,
you know?
I have. Go ahead. No, I've got the main title. Like, I found that on YouTube that I had to download, but there is no official soundtrack release. I'll email the guys at Entrada and see if they could do it, but I don't know. I was amazed that it's on Blu-ray. You know, but
maybe nobody's ever asked.
well, you know,
That's
here's
all
an
you have to do.
That could be it, but here's an interesting thing. Like, so I saw this, but I didn't see it until 2001. It wasn't even available on VHS until 2001, and VHS was effectively dead at that point. You know, DVD had taken over. Of course, it came out on DVD at that point as well. But the movie didn't even, it did get a theatrical release in the United States. They gave it a different name. But yeah, it wasn't available in the States for, almost 30 years. So, like most people couldn't even see it. So I'm not surprised that it's not like on torrents or anything like that, because again, it wasn't like really an available film until somewhat recently anyway. Yeah. So if you want to get your hands on this, you're probably going to have to grab the Blu-ray, or the DVD or whatever. But I highly recommend that you do so. What do you say, Ellen?
Yes, I would recommend it too. All
right. Well, we'll leave this final program with the final program. Actually, no, this is not the final program. There's
so much more.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going to make the listener sick. There's going to be so much. But anyway, Ellen, it was great having you on.
Thank you. It was great to be on again.
Yeah, it was cool to, just hang out and talk about all the stuff that's going on and what's coming in the future and what we're up to. And everybody should go see DragonForce while they're on tour and, do all that jazz. Go catch a good movie. And, like the Khajiit say, wait, how did the Khajiit say it? This is a quote that it's actually what inspired me to finally pick up Skyrim again, which we talked about earlier. Which, go ahead, folks, go play Skyrim. The quote from the Khajiit is, oh, for fuck's sake, I'll have it in a second. Here it is.
Just pause the recording.
No, we're not going to pause the recording. We're going to keep going. Here we go. Our struggle against the colossal forces of oppression, our struggle against the colossal forces of oppression can wait. Now, I'll read the whole thing. You want me to read the whole thing?
Yes, please. I actually love this book.
All right, here we go. So this is from Azir Tajazari. I didn't get that right, but he's a Khajiit.
The first line of the book is, "This book is utter nonsense."
Yeah, here we go. Life is short. If you have not made love recently, please put down this book and take care of that with all haste. Find a wanton lass or a frisky lad, or several, in whatever combination your wise loins direct, and do not under any circumstances play hard to get. Our struggle against the colossal forces of oppression can wait. and that's it, folks. Okay? Go watch that movie. Go to DragonForce. Go on a van trip. Do whatever. Our struggle against the colossal forces of oppression can wait a day or a year. Or a night, or whatever.
Oh, they'll still be there when we come back.
They'll still be there. Yeah, don't worry. They'll still be there.
We'll be ready for battle.
Yeah, woo! And we'll leave it at that. So, thank you again, Ellen, for being on. We will see all of you, on the other side. Woo! Maybe even the other side of the country. Woo!